Chapter 1252. In front of the prince's mansion. After watching Gu Zi and the great elder enter the mansion, Yu Haoran slowly closed his eyes and carefully felt the sublimation of his state of mind after he took the initiative to let go of their grudges. Yu Haoran, although your state of mind did not break through to a higher realm because of this, the sublimation of your state of mind will not only allow you to better display the strength of a peak 9th grade martial saint, but also has an unexpected benefit for breaking through to the martial revered realm. Fouling also felt the sublimation of Yu Haoran's state of mind. Killing as you wish can improve your state of mind. Taking a step back and forgiving can also improve your state of mind. After opening his eyes, Yu Haoran also felt surprised and could not help but sigh. Fouling, the path of martial cultivation is ever-changing. It seems that I still have a lot to learn. That's right. At the same time, Fouling wanted to further improve Yu Haoran's understanding of martial arts. However, he found that the guests were very important to Yu Haoran, so he put away the idea of improving his understanding and took the initiative to remind him. Yu Haoran, Lu Yuan, and Jian Yu are here. After hearing Fouling's reminder, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and adjusted his emotions after the sublimation of his state of mind. Then, he turned around and looked at Lu Yuan and the other 3 people who slowly landed on the colorful, auspicious cloud square. However, when he saw the young man standing in front of Lu Yuan with an unusually arrogant expression, a trace of displeasure flashed in his eyes. Junior Yu Haoran greets Senior Jian Yu. After retracting his sharp gaze, Yu Haoran immediately greeted him with a smile. Prince Consort, let me introduce you. Jian Yu forced a smile and pointed at the 2 people standing in front of him and said, "This is the Sky Sword Sect's vice sect leader, Jian Yuan. And this young disciple is Jian Ying, the successor disciple who gained the favor of the artifact some time ago and took the initiative to recognize her as its master." Junior Yu Haoran greets Sect Master Jian Yuan. Yu Haoran greeted him in a rather unenthusiastic manner. He had met Jian Yuan a few times in his previous life, and his impression of him was very ordinary. He knew that Jian Yuan was a rather stubborn person who was willing to give up his life for the development of the sword faction. Then, he looked at Jian Ying, who was about the same age as him and had been recognized by the Xin Yuan sword. Looking at the slightly immature Jian Ying, Yu Haoran could not help but feel a trace of killing intent in his heart. It was this person in front of him who had relied on the doting and protection of the sect's elders in his previous life to suppress senior brother Lu Yuan's growth, causing him to miss several opportunities to transform and become stronger. It was this person in front of him who had almost taken his life several times in his previous life. At the same time, he had also caused him to lose an opportunity to become stronger. Yu Haoran, calm down and concentrate. Just as Yu Haoran was about to lose control of the killing intent that kept surging in his heart, Fouling in his sea of consciousness hurriedly reminded him. Fouling's reminder and the suppression of his powerful state of mind caused Yu Haoran to quickly calm down. Moreover, he did not show any abnormalities as he greeted Jian Yuan with a smile. Junior brother Jian Ying, Yu Haoran, now that my cultivation is not as good as yours, I will acknowledge you as junior brother, but give me 3 years. Faced with Yu Haoran's gentle greeting, Jian Ying did not show any modesty that a guest or a junior brother should have. His expression was unusually arrogant as he provoked him. 3 years later, I hope that when you see me, you can respectfully call me senior brother. Faced with Jian Ying's arrogant provocation, the smile on Yu Haoran's face did not decrease at all. He only looked directly at Lu Yuan and happily greeted him. Senior brother Lu, junior brother Yu. Lu Yuan, who had a cold expression, finally showed a happy smile and greeted him. Hearing Yu Haoran's intimate address for Lu Yuan, Jian Ying's face instantly darkened. At this moment, Yu Haoran's earlier disregard, as well as the fact that Yu Haoran's cultivation and reputation clearly surpassed Lu Yuan's, yet he still respectfully addressed him as senior brother. This made Jian Ying feel a kind of naked humiliation. At this moment, he looked at Yu Haoran with an undisguised, killing intent in his eyes. Jian Ying, Although today is Yu Haoran's big day, and I don't want to see too much bloodshed, if you continue to act so recklessly, do you believe that I won't destroy you right now? The killing intent that he had suppressed with great difficulty was enraged by Jian Ying's undisguised killing intent. Looking back at Jian Ying, Yu Haoran also did not conceal the killing intent in his eyes as he threatened Jian Ying. I don't believe it, Jian Ying retorted arrogantly. Seeing that a conflict was about to break out between Yu Haoran and Jian Ying, Jian Yu immediately wanted to step forward and mediate, but Jian Yuan stopped him with a sharp look. Then, Jian Yuan looked at Yu Haoran with a cold smile. Fouling, can you suppress the Xin Yuan sword? Jian Ying's reckless provocation and Jian Yuan's insidious intention of using him as a stepping stone to raise Jian Ying's reputation completely changed Yu Haoran's mind. Isn't it just the suppression of the sword Tao providence? I've already died once. Why would I be afraid of the suppression of an ownerless consciousness providence? Have you thought it through? Fouling asked with a serious expression. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran took out his natal sword in front of everyone. He reached out and stroked the natal sword that he had rarely used since he had refined it. A trace of reluctance appeared in his eyes. He closed his eyes and began to weaken the various experiences he had to go through to create his own sword technique. By the time he opened his eyes again, the reluctance in his eyes had turned into determination. After that, he tossed the natal sword in his hand into the air and took out the white staff, a high-grade venerable realm magic artifact. Boom! Puffed. As the white stick heavily bombarded the life sword that had just been promoted to the high-grade sage realm was broken into several pieces. And at the moment his intrinsic sword shattered, Yu Haoran spat out a mouthful of blood essence. His face instantly turned a lot paler. In the EU palace, Haoran, Qin Lingfei, who was also using divine thought to observe the prince's mansion, stood up when she saw Yu Haoran spitting out essence blood. She cried out in pain and wanted to go to the mansion to take a look. However, she was stopped by Emperor Qin. Ling Fei, whether it's the Sky Sword Sect's deputy sect leader Jian Yuan or Elder Jian Yu, they are no match for Yu Haoran. His life will not be in any danger. Father, why did Haoran destroy his natal sword with his own hands? Although Emperor Qin's persuasion calmed Qin Lingfei down for the time being, she still asked in confusion when she thought of Yu Haoran destroying his natal sword. Shaking his head, Emperor Qin and Zi Xuan also looked at Yu Haoran, who was standing in front of the mansion with blood at the corner of his mouth, in confusion. In the void above Xianyang City. Chapter 1253. In the void above Xianyang City. Looking back and forth between Jianing and Lu Yuan 3 times, Ancestor Yuan frowned, and his eyes also showed a look of deep confusion. Just now, when Yu Haoran took out the natal sword, he, who had a little understanding of the way of refining, could clearly feel the excellence of the natal sword. He knew that the natal sword that Yu Haoran carefully refined had the potential to be promoted to the Emperor realm. Such a precious natal sword was directly destroyed, and because of this, his mind was seriously damaged. If it were not for the danger of conflict with the natal sword, Yu Haoran would not have made such a risky move. But the natal sword was a treasure that was integrated with his mind, just like an organ in his body, and it would never hurt him, unless it was the backlash of the natal sword. Thinking of the backlash of the natal sword, Ancestor Yuan once remembered a rumor he had heard before. His body shook slightly, and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. Ancestor, what the hell is going on? The change in Ancestor Yuan's expression let Tung Yunjia know that he had guessed the reason why Yu Haoran destroyed the natal sword, and immediately asked nervously. In the face of Tung Yunjia's questioning, Ancestor Yuan first glanced at Jianing, and there was a trace of fear in his eyes. When his gaze shifted to Yu Haoran, the fear in his eyes was replaced by admiration. Then, he took a deep breath and said with a hint of excitement in his tone, Yunjia, Haoran intends to do something that is against the world and can be called crazy. In a cloud about 100 meters away from Tung Yunjia and Ancestor Yuan, Lian Tong, the deputy head of the refining sect, one of the 7 top sects in the Tianxin continent, had a look of heartache on his face and gritted his teeth and complained. It's a pity. This is a natal sword with the potential to reach the divine realm, but it was destroyed by you, Howren, the prodigal thing. If he was a disciple of our refining sect, I would put him in confinement for 100 years. Master, Prince Consort is a great master of alchemy who can refine the supreme Huazuan pill and the 7 lives mysterious gate pill. How could he become a disciple of the refining sect? So don't be delusional. In the face of Lien Tong's heartache complaint, a girl who could only be considered outstanding but gave people a strange feeling, smiled and teased. Then, she put away the smile on her face and asked seriously, Master, why did the Prince Consort personally destroy the natal magic tool that had the potential to become a divine tool? I don't know, I don't want to know. In the face of the disciple's interrogation, Lien Tong said, quite impatient, If it weren't for the headmaster's orders, I would have brought you back to the crafting school right now. I definitely won't attend the wedding of someone who doesn't respect their natal ritual implement. After Yuan of the martial and martial way martial arts, he quickly after swallowed, and quickly and then and quickly and then and quickly recovered. A fierce Yuan, who could not help but and that Ing could not help. Junior brother Ui. Others did not know the reason why Yu Haoran destroyed his natal sword with his own hands, but as someone who knew Jian Ying's identity, how could Lu Yuan not know? But when the two of them parted at the Yuan pavilion of the Twin Bull Mountain, he had personally promised to let him deal with the threat of the heaven, earth, and man swords. Why did he suddenly change his mind now? Senior brother Lu, I don't like Jian Ying, so I want to send him back to the sword god's embrace in advance. Yu Haoran smiled as he wiped away the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth. Lu Yuan looked straight into Yu Haoran's eyes and shook his head, indicating that he did not believe the reason he had just given. Senior brother Lu, whether you believe it or not, it's the reason just now. Taking a step forward, a strong aura soared into the sky and directly shattered the clouds in the void above his head, revealing the 3 people hidden in the clouds. Yu Haoran said with a murderous aura, ignoring the 3 people who were exposed in the clouds. Senior brother Lu, please move aside. Accompanied by the sound of a sword that resounded through the clouds, a strong fighting spirit rose from Lu Yuan's body. Then, he took a step forward and said with a firm expression, Junior brother Yu, if you don't give me a reasonable explanation, then if you want to kill Jianing, you must first defeat me, Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan and Yu Haoran, who were as close as brothers, suddenly began to fight. Jian Yu was greatly surprised, and he quickly stopped them. Lu Yuan, Prince Consort, what's wrong with you? But unfortunately, whether it was Yu Haoran or Lu Yuan, their strength was infinitely close to the martial honor realm, and they were monstrous geniuses who could display the strength of a martial honor through swords and sword techniques. The terrifying aura emitted by the 2 people confronted each other, and Jian Yu's strength was simply unable to intervene. Lu Yuan, I am Yu Haoran's Tao protector on the path of cultivation, and also his martial Tao teacher. Don't you know why he would rather destroy his own natal sword to kill Jianing? Just as Yu Haoran and Lu Yuan were about to fight, a voice full of vicissitudes of life suddenly sounded in Lu Yuan's mind. Because he didn't know where the person who had just spoken was, he couldn't use his divine sense to reply. Lu Yuan could only quietly wait for the answer he wanted to know. Lu Yuan, in addition to being proficient in pill and array Tao, Yu Haoran is also an arcane master who is proficient in the art of innate divination. He once used the ancient divination treasure Fushi's 8 trigrams to calculate your future fate. Now, do you know the real reason why he destroyed his natal sword that had the potential to become a divine artifact in the future? Thinking about how Yu Haoran would be suppressed by the sword Tao's destiny after killing Jian Ying and the enmity of other sword cultivators, Thaling also couldn't control his emotions and roared. After more than 2 years of being together, Thaling could be said to be the person who understood Yu Haoran the most in the world. However, because of Jian Ying's provocation, he simply couldn't do such a crazy and impulsive action. His true goal was to eliminate the future threat to Lu Yuan's sword Tao ahead of time. The sword had the strength of character that would rather break than bend. Ever since he set foot on the path of the sword, No matter how difficult the predicament he faced, no matter how great the grievances he suffered, Lu Yuan had never shed a single tear. Now, under Thaling's roar and moved by Yu Haoran's brotherly affection, a few soybean-sized tears began to drip from the corners of his eyes. I, Lu Yuan, swear by the laws of heaven. Using his natal sword to cut his finger and sprinkle the blood from his finger into the air, Lu Yuan raised the natal sword in his hand and swore. From today onwards, I, Lu Yuan, am willing to become Junior Brother Yu's weapon and help him conquer the ruthless martial Dao. Chapter 1254. There was one more chapter before 10 o'clock. In front of the prince's mansion. Permission granted. Just as Lu Yuan used his own blood as a guide and made a blood oath according to the rules of the heavenly Dao, a single eye that was even larger than before gradually appeared in the sky above Xianying City. The single eye, which had originally been emotionless, gave off a vague illusion at this moment. When the blood oath was successfully made, the single eye seemed to reveal a trace of gratification and satisfaction when it looked at Lu Yuan. After the blood oath was successfully made, the single eye slowly faded away. This caused the 30 or so martial venerables hidden in the clouds and mist, as well as a dozen almighty experts who were about to reach the Emperor Wu realm, to secretly heave a sigh of relief. Senior Brother Lu. He had mistakenly thought that Lu Yuan had guessed his true intention of destroying his natal dermic artifact and did not truly suspect Thaling, who had risked exposing his existence. Therefore, when he saw Lu Yuan immediately protect his blood oath, Yu Haoran immediately felt a trace of warmth in his heart. His eyes were slightly red as he softly called out to Lu Yuan. Putting away the remaining tears in his eyes, Lu Yuan smiled at Yu Haoran and appeared in front of Jian Yuan in a flash. As the heavenly sword, who had obtained 30% of the Sword Dao's destiny and was protected by the ancient divine weapon, the Xian Yuan sword, Lu Yuan knew that he could defeat Jianing, but he could not kill him. Furthermore, Yu Haoran dared to self-destruct his natal dermic artifact and had the secret protection of a mysterious expert. He definitely had the means to kill Jianing. Therefore, Lu Yuan knew that what he needed to do was to prevent Vice Sect Master Jian Yuan from interfering in the battle between Yu Haoran and Jianing. Lu Yuan, what are you trying to do? Jian Yuan asked with a gloomy expression when he saw Lu Yuan pointing his sword at him. Vice Sect Master, if you move, I'll move. If you don't move, I won't move. The blood oath seemed to have melted Lu Yuan's cold personality, making him like Yu Haoran, who liked to face his opponents with a faint smile on his face. Lu Yuan, could it be that you want to betray the Heavenly Sword Sect and become a traitor that everyone despises? Jian Yuan threatened while clenching his fists tightly. In order to nurture a disrespectful, arrogant, and ignorant disciple, you took away nearly 70% of the benefits of the entire sect's disciples. So what if I, Lu Yuan, betray such a heartless sect? Faced with Jian Yuan's threat, Lu Yuan arrogantly retorted. You? Faced with Lu Yuan's arrogant retort, Jian Yuan was so angry that he didn't know what to say. Although Lu Yuan was a disciple of the Sky Sword sect, his talent in martial Dao and sword Dao was quite outstanding. It could be said that he was second only to Jianing, who had just awakened her talent in sword Dao. Furthermore, he seemed to have had a fortuitous encounter some time ago. Not only had his cultivation reached the limits of the peak 9th grade martial saint realm, the might of his sword arts had also broken through the martial exalt realm. Therefore, even though Jian Yuan was the Sky Sword sect's vice sect leader and a third tribulation quasi-martial honorable, he was no match for Lu Yuan. Yuan, Jian Yu, who had appeared beside Lu Yuan in a flash, shouted with a kind expression. Master, I'm sorry. Besides the sword Dao that I'm obsessed with, I have more important people to protect. Looking at the silver-haired Jian Yu, Lu Yuan was full of guilt as he blamed himself. Yuan, not only will I respect your choice, I will also keep the promise of the blood oath with you. Jian Yu, who seemed to have released the shackles on his heart, reached out and stroked Lu Yuan's head as he encouraged him with strong confidence. Jian Yu, Do you also want to betray the Sky Sword sect? Hearing Jian Yu's encouragement for Lu Yuan, Jian Yuan questioned with a gloomy expression. The natal sword that had instantly appeared in his hand pointed directly at Jian Yuan's forehead. Jian Yu had used his actions to express his attitude and choice. Seeing that Lu Yuan and Jian Yu had finally broken free from the shackles of the sect and had taken the initiative to block Jian Yuan, who was about to rescue Jianing at any time, Yu Haoran did not regret his choice to destroy his natal sword. Then, he looked at Jianing, who had a trace of panic in her eyes. Yu Haoran sneered and shouted, "Jianing, prepare to die." Although the Xin Yuan sword had recognized Jianing as its master and completely awakened his heavenly sword physique and received the blessing of the sword Dao, he had cultivated with a heavenly sword physique for too short a time and was only at the peak of the 8th grade martial king realm. Therefore, after Yu Haoran roared, he did not immediately use the staff to attack. Instead, he informed the device spirit to extend the length of the staff. He wanted to use the power of the upper grade venerable realm magic weapon to force the Xin Yuan sword hidden in Jian Ying's body. Xin Yuan sword protector. Just as the white staff was about to reach Jian Ying's head and the power of the upper exalt realm weapon caused cracks to appear on Jian Ying's body, he could not help but shout, "Sigh!" With a soft sigh, a middle-aged man wearing a 9-clawed purple gold dragon robe and emitting the aura of an emperor appeared in front of Jianing. After blocking the power of the upper exalt realm weapon for Jianing, the purple-robed man looked at Yu Haoran with a complicated expression. No, to be more precise, he was looking at Thaling in Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness. "Xin Yuan, do you dare to have a chat in the realm of consciousness?" Thaling, who was also looking at Xin Yuan through his sea of consciousness, invited him with a smile. Victor is a world of his own. You, Thaling, are the ruler. I, Xin Yuan, may be arrogant, but I am not ignorant. Xin Yuan smiled and refused Thaling's invitation. Xin Yuan, why don't we not interfere and let the two juniors settle their grudges? Thaling did not mind Xuan Yuan's refusal at all. Thaling, you've changed. You used to be kind and benevolent. You were able to make us, the weapon spirits of the chaos, believe in you. But now, you're not only cunning, but you've also begun to use schemes. Xin Yuan was slightly surprised by Thaling's suggestion. Then, he glanced at Yu Haoran. There was a hint of admiration in his eyes, but his tone was full of anger. Thaling, the young man you're protecting, not only has the staff of the Mad God, a high-grade venerable realm instrument passed down by the giants in ancient times, but his state of mind, body, yuanli, and soul have all broken through to the venerable realm. The young man I'm protecting is only at the peak of the 8th level of the martial king realm. You're letting two young men with vastly different cultivation levels fight each other. You're as cunning as Xin Yuan. Xin Yuan, shut up. Don't compare me to Thaling. I'm not as cunning as you think. Thaling scolded Xin Yuan angrily. Aren't you? Xin Yuan looked at Thaling with disdain and sneered. Xin Yuan, you're protecting Jianing. She's a heavenly sword with 30% of the way of the sword. Any ordinary sword technique she uses can reach the level of a heavenly sword technique. Thaling took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He looked at Jianing, who was behind Xin Yuan. Chapter 1255. In front of the prince's mansion. Even with the support of 30% of the sword principal fate, Jianing, who was at the peak of the 8th level of the martial king realm, could only exert the strength of the peak of the 9th level of the martial royal realm. He was far from being able to challenge Yu Haoran, who was a martial venerable. Therefore, in the face of Thaling's sophistry, Xin Yuan just smiled and shook his head. Then, he merged back into Jian Ying's body. Jianing, who was only at the peak of the 8th rank of the martial king realm, quickly broke through the martial king realm, the martial saint realm, and the martial venerable realm. Finally, she reached the peak of the 7th rank of the martial venerable realm. Thaling, could it be that Xin Yuan is also using the possession technique to increase Jian Ying's cultivation and strength? Feeling that Jian Ying's cultivation was only at the peak of the 7th rank of the martial venerable realm, Yu Haoran was very nervous. However, he was also very excited. No. Fowling shook his head and explained. The possession technique is a secret technique that Fowling, created. In this world, only I can use it. Xian Yuan is overdrawing the original energy of the Xian Yuan sword to increase Jian Ying's cultivation and strength. Then, he will enter the sea of consciousness and control the body. Fowling suddenly felt that something was wrong. He immediately mobilized his mind and carefully checked Jian Ying's current state. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. Xian Yuan is still too arrogant. His soul has barely recovered to the peak of the 9th rank of the martial venerable realm. He is eager to leave the reincarnated person who is protected by the laws of heaven. Moreover, in order to awaken Jian Ying's celestial sword constitution, he has consumed a part of the original energy of the Xian Yuan sword. At this point, the pagoda genie shifted its gaze to Yu Haoran and reminded him with a smile. Yu Haoran, if Xian Yuan doesn't want to fall back into a deep sleep, he can only maintain the strength of the peak of the 7th rank of the martial venerable realm. With your witch ancestor body and the upper rank of the venerable realm staff, you have the strength to challenge Xian Yuan. Fowling, what if Xian Yuan uses the Xian Yuan sword? Yu Haoran's excitement had completely replaced his nervousness. Before he decided to fight Xian Yuan, he asked the last question that he was afraid of. Once the Xian Yuan sword is out, the victor will definitely appear. Fowling promised proudly. After getting Fowling's guarantee, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and directly activated the ancestral wizard's body. He quickly turned into a towering giant with a height of more than 2,000 meters. At the same time, considering that Xian Yuan was an ancient artifact spirit that existed at the same time as Fowling, he must have mastered powerful martial arts and secret techniques. Therefore, after transforming into the body of an ancestral wizard at the peak, he took the opportunity to activate the ancestral wizard's bloodline secret technique, allowing himself to unleash the strength of his peak state. Perhaps it was because Yu Haoran had recovered his ancestral shaman body that was at the peak of the ancestral shaman realm and had awakened a trace of the origin energy within the high-grade venerable realm staff Dharma artifact. At the same time, the Dharma artifact's artifact spirit became even more excited, and its strength faintly showed signs of breaking through. Master, I have a set of staff techniques that the old master created himself. If you use it with the most authentic ancestral shaman bloodline, not only will it be powerful, but it will also be easy to learn. Feeling the call of the pure ancestral shaman bloodline, the Dharma artifact spirit's grade was about to reach the highest grade of the venerable realm. At the same time, the Dharma artifact spirit was extremely excited and expressed its loyalty even more enthusiastically. Xian Yuan, if you have the guts, let's fight in the void. Yu Haoran was worried that the aftermath of the battle between him and Xian Yuan would affect the mansion that he had painstakingly built. As he flew into the void, he invited Xian Yuan to fight and ordered the Dharma artifact spirit at the same time. Give it to me. Fowling immediately used his divine thoughts to condense a staff technique and quickly integrated it into Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness. It only took him 3 seconds to completely master this set of staff techniques that was completely suitable for the ancestral shaman. Falling stars. Just as he rushed into the void, Yu Haoran immediately turned around. Then, with the help of the falling style, he used the first move of the staff martial skill he had just obtained, Falling Stars, to directly attack Jianing, who was rushing over. No, to be more precise, it was Xian Yuan. Breaking Qi, Xian Yuan didn't panic at all in the face of the rapidly approaching staff technique. He took out a mid-grade Venerable Realm sword and used his self-created sword technique to easily break Yu Haoran's staff technique. Swallowing the sky, Yu Haoran didn't change his mood at all because of Xuanyuan's ease of breaking the staff technique. He then used the second move of the staff technique. Breaking Staff. The mid-grade Venerable Realm sword in his hand easily knocked away Yu Haoran's white staff. However, the difference in the level of the sword still made Xuanyuan's left hand tremble slightly. Pear Blossom Storm. When the white staff was knocked away, Yu Haoran took advantage of the opportunity to get closer to Xian Yuan. He skipped the last 4 moves of the staff technique and directly used the last move, which was the most powerful and the most difficult to defend against. Xianyuan took a deep breath when he saw the white staff coming towards him like a storm. He infused the power of the law into the mid-grade Venerable Realm sword and shouted softly, swallowing the mountains and rivers. The mid-grade Venerable Realm sword quickly rotated with the power of the law and gradually formed a huge whirlpool that emitted a purple light. As soon as the staff technique hit the whirlpool like a storm, it was diverted away by the whirlpool's rotational force. It did not pose any threat at all. Seeing that the attack of the Pear Blossom Storm didn't have any effect, Yu Haoran knew that although he had mastered the staff technique taught by the weapon spirit, he still hadn't fully understood the essence of the staff technique. At the moment, he could only use 70% of the staff technique's power. He didn't have the power to defeat Xianyuan, who had mastered the power of the law. Therefore, after quickly retrieving the white staff, Yu Haoran soared into the sky and used the momentum of the fall to display the true essence of the Monkey Emperor's staff technique. Skyward Strike. Xuanyuan's expression changed when he sensed that Yu Haoran's staff martial technique contained the violent aura of the demon clan and the power of the law of destruction. Moreover, the power of the staff martial technique was at the early stage of the 8th grade martial honored realm. He didn't expect Yu Haoran to have mastered such a powerful staff technique. Xianyuan hit his chest with his right hand and spat out a mouthful of blood on the mid-grade Venerable Realm sword. Then, Xianyuan threw the sword into the air and quickly formed a seal with his 10 fingers. Xianyuan shouted as soon as the imprint merged with the sword. Xianyuan become emperor. As Xianyuan shouted, the mid-grade Venerable Realm sword that was thrown into the air immediately twisted and condensed into a middle-aged emperor wearing a dark purple dragon robe. He looked even more majestic and dignified with a crown on his head. Chapter 1256. Xianyang City, EU Palace. This is Heavenly Emperor Xianyuan from the ancient times. When the Qin Emperor saw the Sky Sword Sex, Jianying used a special secret imprint technique to create the dragon-robed middle-aged emperor with a middle-grade exalted realm sword. He could not help but cry out in shock. He is also the first true emperor of our human race. Father, how is Heavenly Emperor Xuanyuan's strength? Qin Lingfei was not interested in who Heavenly Emperor Xianyuan was. What she wanted to know the most now was whether Yu Haoran could defeat or even kill Heavenly Emperor Xianyuan and Jianying. In the face of Qin Lingfei's question, Emperor Qin and Zixian looked at each other and saw the disappointment and bitterness in each other's eyes. When he first met Yu Haoran, he was only a low-level martial artist in the martial master realm. In just over a year, he had grown into a peerless expert that he had to look up to. How could Emperor Qin not feel disappointed with such a huge gap in strength and status? Therefore, he smiled bitterly and shook his head as he explained. Ling Fei, whether it is Jianying who used a secret technique to increase her cultivation or Prince Consort who turned into a giant, their strength has far exceeded what I and the Empress Dowager know. I don't know who is stronger or weaker, who will win or lose. Qin Lingfei could not help but clench her fists when she saw that even her father, whom she had always admired, could not predict the outcome of the battle in the void. She began to pray for Yu Haoran in her heart. In the void, looking at the rapidly approaching white rod, the middle-aged emperor in dragon robes, who was formed by the middle-grade honorable realm sword, slowly extended his broad left hand. It seemed to be moving slowly, but in fact it crossed the barrier of space and time and instantly slapped the head of the rod. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, Yu Haoran felt that the arm that was holding the rod was slightly numb. At the same time, the strong rebounding force formed by the rod and the palm bounced him back into the void. Crack! With a crisp cracking sound, a small crack appeared on the dragon-robed, middle-aged emperor's left palm. Crack! As the cracking sound continued, the small crack in the palm began to expand and soon extended to the entire body of the middle-aged emperor. Bang! Along with a loud bang, the middle-aged emperor in dragon robes that was formed from a mid-grade Exalt Realm sword exploded into countless pieces and drifted down to the corners of Xianyang City. Some knowledgeable people immediately began to collect the sword fragments, hoping to gain something from them. The corners of Jian Yuan's mouth twitched involuntarily as he watched the emperor in dragon robes explode into countless pieces. He was firmly suppressed by Lu Yuan and Jian Yu. A pained expression appeared on his face. Although the Sky Sword sect was very powerful and could be ranked in the top 3 among first-rate sects in terms of the number of peak experts and the overall strength of the sect, they were also not good at management, so their days were only slightly better than the Steelblood sect. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken nearly 70% of the sect's resources to nurture Jianying alone. As the vice-sect leader of the Sky Sword sect, his natal sword would not be only at the Upper Saint Realm. A middle-grade Honorable Realm Sword could be said to be the most precious treasure of the Sky Sword sect. How could he not feel pained seeing it explode for no reason, overturning rivers and seas? Yu Haoran heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the dragon-robed, middle-aged emperor explode because he was unable to withstand the earlier attack. Then, he continued to use the strength of his pinnacle state, performing the second move of the Monkey Emperor's inheritance, the staff technique that he had grasped the essence of. Xuanyuan's face darkened when he saw Yu Haoran perform the second move of the staff technique. It was as powerful as a mid-grade honorable realm. Due to Jian Ying's cultivation and physical body's grade, he couldn't use the various powerful martial skills and secret techniques that he had mastered. The dragon-robed, middle-aged emperor that he had condensed with the help of the middle-grade Venerable Realm Sword was already the strongest technique that he could use. Therefore, Xian Yuan could only use his Xian Yuan sword when he saw the even more powerful staff technique coming at him. He quickly extracted the origin energy that he had used to increase Jian Ying's cultivation and strength and infused it back into the Xian Yuan sword. A brilliant sword qi shot out from Jian Ying's body. Along with the brilliant sword qi, a dark purple sword with the sun, moon, and stars engraved on one side and mountains and rivers and plants on the other side slowly floated out from Jian Ying's head. Seeing the sword floating above Jian Ying's head, an uncontrollable cry of surprise came from the clouds in the east. This is the Xian Yuan sword that has existed since the beginning of the world. An uncontrollable cry of greed came from the clouds in the north. This is the Xian Yuan sword. An uncontrollable cry of greed came from the clouds in the east. This is the natal sword of the first emperor of the ancient human race. In the Yue Palace in the south, Emperor Qin could not hide the desire in his eyes as he looked at the Xian Yuan sword. If I can get the help of the Xian Yuan sword, the unification of Tianxian will be just around the corner. Seeing that Xian Yuan had started to use the Xian Yuan sword, Yu Haoran did not continue to attack. Instead, he quickly dispersed the power of the staff technique and notified Thaling in his sea of consciousness. Thaling, do it. Yu Haoran, go ahead and kill Jianing. Leave the Xian Yuan sword to me. In response to Yu Haoran's reminder, Thaling, who had returned to the victor, said. Then, Victor also left Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness and emitted Xian Yuan qi to suppress the sword qi of the Xian Yuan sword. Thaling knew that his origin involved too many secrets, so he used the dense Xian Yuan qi that could block the prying eyes of divine sense to hide his body. Only the dense Xian Yuan qi appeared. Seeing that Thaling had successfully suppressed the Xian Yuan sword, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and waved the white staff in his hand, directly attacking Jianing, who was protected by the Xian Yuan sword qi. Although he wanted to save Jianing, Victor, who clearly had the upper hand, suppressed him, making it difficult for the Xian Yuan sword to disperse more power. He could only watch as the white staff smashed Jianing into powder. However, just as the white staff was about to hit Jianying's body, the sound of a dragon's roar resounded between heaven and earth. Accompanied by the dragon's roar, all the warriors who used swords, whether it was the natal sword that was fused with their mind or the ordinary sword that they used temporarily, all trembled with excitement. Chapter 12:57. In Xianyang City. Puff. When an expert at the peak of the 9th grade martial royal realm unwillingly wanted to take back his natal sword, A trace of invisible force directly cut off the connection between him and his natal sword. His mind instantly suffered a serious injury, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood essence. His face immediately turned as pale as paper. Mai Ching, an expert at the peak of the 9th grade, Martial Saint Realm, spat out blood essence as he called out to his natal sword in grief. What the hell is going on? A quasi-martial venerable expert in the void ignored the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth and watched his natal sword, which he had carefully cultivated for 100 years, quickly fly to the top of Jianying's head. He could not help but roar to the sky. Looking at the countless swords that exuded a sharp aura being forcibly gathered above Jianying's head and gradually condensing into a sword dragon about 1,000 meters long, the ancestor of the heavenly martial sect muttered to himself with an ugly expression. Just to save the heavenly sword that carries the destiny of swordsmanship, you would rather sacrifice the natal sword that tens of thousands of swordsmen have painstakingly refined and nurtured. Aren't you afraid that hundreds of millions of martial artists in the Tianxian continent will abandon swordsmanship? Ancestor, what the hell is going on? Tang Yunjie, who had also lost his natal sword and immediately took an elixir to heal his mind, asked with a gloomy face after hearing the ancestor's muttering. In the face of Tang Yunjie's questioning, the ancestor only shook his head and did not explain why countless natal swords were out of control just now. However, at this moment, he felt extremely fortunate that he was not a pure swordsman. Otherwise, losing the natal sword that had reached the highest grade of the venerable realm would not only weaken his own strength, but also affect the 3 tribulations of the quasi-Emperor Wu realm. Seeing the destiny of swordsmanship forcibly cut off the connection between the minds of countless swordsmen and their natal swords, Yu Haoran, who quickly withdrew the white cudgel, had a flash of understanding in his eyes. The reason why the destiny of swordsmanship could become the top of the martial arts branch of destiny was entirely because of the belief of hundreds of millions of sword cultivators in the Tianxian continent. If hundreds of millions of sword cultivators all abandoned swordsmanship, then not only would the destiny of swordsmanship weaken, but it would also very likely disappear completely. When he thought of this, the heavy pressure that he had to bear from the Sword Dao Providence's suppression suddenly relaxed a lot. At the same time, he gradually formed a plan to completely weaken the Sword Dao Providence, but he still needed to discuss it with Thaling to see if it was feasible. Alas! After noticing what the Sword Dao Fate was doing, the spirit of Xian Yuan, who was desperately resisting the Thaling suppression, suddenly sighed. Then, it withdrew its attack power, allowing the Thaling to completely suppress it, and was directly absorbed into the victor. Xian Yuan, nothing in this world can last forever, not even the invisible fate formed by the branches of martial arts. Although the Xian Yuan sword was kept in the body of the victor, Thaling did not suppress the spirit of the Xian Yuan sword, which had given up resisting. Instead, he allowed the spirit to appear in Yu Haoran's mind. After seeing a trace of sadness in Xuan Yuan's eyes, Thaling came to his side and comforted him. The Sword Dao is still the first branch of martial arts formed at the beginning of the world. After being tempered by the ancient times, the Middle Ages, and the recent ages, it has not weakened at all. Instead, it has become the most powerful branch of martial arts. The Pagoda Spirit was kind enough to comfort Xian Yuan, but the Pagoda Spirit's words made Xian Yuan feel uncomfortable. Thaling, even if you and I are destroyed in the infinite calamity, the Sword Dao Fate will never disappear. Thaling did not feel a trace of displeasure because of Xuan Yuan's refutation. He looked at the Sword Dao Fate that was about to condense into 1,000 meters long dragon and asked with a trace of reminiscence in his eyes. Xian Yuan, do you still remember the Sword Dao that was able to compete with the Sword Dao in the Middle Ages? Hearing Thaling mention the Sword Dao in the Middle Ages, Xian Yuan, who was staring at the sword dragon, immediately took a few steps back. His face was as white as a sheet of paper. Xian Yuan, just as you said, the Sword Dao may never disappear, but I believe that Yu Haoran will be able to suppress the Sword Dao and prevent it from ever rising again. Even its survival will be in his hands. Thowling looked at Yu Haoran and said confidently, ignoring the fact that Xuan Yuan's state of mind was affected. Xin Yuan forced himself to calm down and sneered in disbelief. He then continued to focus on the Sword Dao Fate that was condensing into the Sword Dao Fate. Suddenly, his attention was attracted by a young man who was rushing towards the Sword Dao Fate. It was Lu Yuan, the genius swordsman who used his own blood as a guide and made a blood oath to protect Yu Haoran for the rest of his life. Of course, what really attracted Xuan Yuan's attention wasn't Lu Yuan's talent and swordsmanship, nor was it his courage to face the sword dragon. It was his natal swordsmanship that hadn't been taken away by Xin Yuan. And Jian, to be able to resist the Sword Dao Fate and forcefully take away one's Sword Dao Fate, one had to be strong enough to resist the Sword Dao Fate, just like his own Xin Yuan sword. The other was the heaven, earth, and human swords that had a special relationship with the Sword Dao Fate. Xin Yuan had already seen the heaven, earth, and human swords in the Heavenly Sword sect. It was not Lu Yuan who was rushing towards the Sword Dao dragon. Even an expert who was close to the level of Emperor Wu was unable to resist the Sword Dao Fate and forcefully take away his Sword Dao Fate. Lu Yuan, who was only at the peak of the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm, definitely did not have such strength. Then, he could only be the 4th Sword Dao Fate of the heaven, earth, and human swords. And Jian, Pagoda Spirit, Yu Haoran was willing to destroy the natal sword that you had painstakingly forged in order to kill Jianing. Is he trying to protect Jian's growth? After thinking about Lu Yuan's true identity, all kinds of thoughts flashed through Xuan Yuan's mind. He roared with a hint of excitement. What do you think? Thowling replied with a smile. I got it. Nodding his head, the disappointment and sadness on Xuan Yuan's face was immediately replaced by excitement. He looked at Lu Yuan with a look of anticipation. Sword Dao Fate. I don't care how many swordsmen's Sword Dao Fate you want to take away, but you cannot break the connection between my master and his Sword Dao Fate. Lu Yuan, who had rushed in front of the Sword Dao dragon, roared with a fierce expression. Yu Haoran, who was afraid that something would happen to Lu Yuan, instantly appeared beside him. He raised the staff in his hand and glared at the Sword Dao dragon. Perhaps it was because of Lu Yuan's identity as the Sword, or perhaps it was because of the immense pressure from Yu Haoran, but a white sword suddenly flew out of the sword dragon formed by the Sword Dao Providence. The milky white sword instantly appeared in front of Jian Yu and quickly entered his dantian. Following that, a special energy wave healed Jian Yu's injuries and restored the connection between him and his Sword Dao Fate. Chapter 1258. In the Void. Junior Brother Yu, why don't we join forces? Although the Sword Principal Fate had obediently returned Jian Yu's natal sword and healed his mind, Lu Yuan did not give up on attacking. Senior Brother Lu, you may leave. Yu Haoran shook his head and smiled. Then, he lifted his head to look at the sword dragon that had completely taken shape. A trace of contempt flashed in his eyes. Although the Sword Principal Fate has condensed the Sword Principal Fate to reach the peak of 9th grade martial honored realm, the resentment of countless natal swords made it unable to exert much of its strength. I will definitely defeat the sword dragon within 3 moves. All right. Lu Yuan nodded without hesitation as he trusted Yu Haoran. He then returned to the square with the rainbow, auspicious clouds. Although Yu Haoran said it casually, he was very nervous. After all, the difference in strength between each small realm of the martial honored realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even if it was affected by the resentment of thousands of natal swords, the sword dragon could not exert the strength of a peak 9th grade martial honored realm. However, with the Sword Principal Fate's extreme control of the Sword Principal Fate, it could exert the strength of an 8th grade martial honored realm. Therefore, in a situation where there was not much difference in strength, it was not easy to end the battle within 3 moves. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran waved the white rod in his hand and used the last move of the Sword Principal, the Pear Blossom Rainstorm, to test the strength and means of the sword dragon. Although the body of the ancestral wizard that was 2,000 meters long gave off a cumbersome feeling, Yu Haoran was not affected by the ancestral wizard's body at all under the control of his state of mind that had just been sublimated. Together with the staff instrument, he formed a shadow that filled the sky and started to attack the giant sword dragon like a violent storm. Dang, dang, dang. The sky, full of shadows and dazzling sword radiance, not only made it impossible for the surrounding people to see with their physical bodies, but even their divine thoughts could not enter the center of the battle. They could only hear the sound of the rod and the sword clashing. In a total of 30 seconds, Yu Haoran used the staff technique of the pear blossom rainstorm to attack 3,650 times consecutively. Withdrawing his staff, Yu Haoran stepped back 1,000 meters. While gasping for breath, he raised his head and looked at the sword dragon 1,000 meters away. Although the sword dragon successfully blocked every attack with its profound swordsmanship, it was limited by the grade of the swords that formed its body. Nearly 1/3 of the swords were either broken or turned into powder. This made the sword dragon look very miserable. In the joyous Moon Palace Hall. Great! Qin Lingfei couldn't help but cheer when she saw that Yu Haoran had beaten the sword dragon into such a sorry state with only one move of the staff. As for Emperor Qin and Zi Xian, who had suffered heavy mental damage, their slightly pale faces also revealed happy smiles. After all, Lu Yuan had just asked for Jian Yu's natal sword and Yu Haoran's evaluation of the sword dragon. Then, combined with their understanding of sword principle luck, they already knew the general reason why they had lost their natal sword. Just to protect a disciple with top talent in sword principle, they had directly deprived thousands of swordsmen of their natal sword that they had painstakingly refined and cultivated. This practice of sword principle luck had completely hurt Emperor Qin and Zi Xian. Although they would not completely give up on sword principle, they would not choose to recondense their natal sword. However, the happy smile on their faces did not last long. Zi Xian, who had sharp eyes, saw that Yu Haoran's expression was not quite right. She quickly reminded him, "Your Majesty, Ling Fei, look at the prince consort." In the void, it seemed that the attack just now had an absolute advantage, but the broken and shattered natal sword did not fall off. Instead, it was absorbed by the sword dragon. This made the power contained in it more concentrated, and the strength it could exert was more powerful. Yu Haoran, if you want to prevent the sword dragon from absorbing the essence of the natal sword to increase its strength, you need to directly blast its body open and find a way to seize the essence of the natal sword. Thaling, who had also discovered the abnormality of the sword dragon, quickly reminded him, "Seize the essence." After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately had a pleasant thought in his mind. He suddenly stepped on the void and flew up into the air. At the same time, he took out the Rui bell that had integrated into his divine soul, overturning rivers and seas. Through the pear blossom storm staff attack just now, Yu Haoran knew that the sword dragon condensed from sword principle luck could only exert the strength of the 8th level martial royal realm. If it were not for his profound understanding of sword principle, the storm-like attack just now would have blasted the sword dragon into pieces. However, considering that the sword dragon had just absorbed 1/3 of the natal sword's essence, its strength must have increased. Therefore, when he used the second staff technique of the Monkey Emperor's inheritance, he continued to overdraw a part of the ancestral witch's blood. This also made the power of the overturning rivers and seas reach the peak of the middle 8th level martial venerable realm. Feeling the fatal danger of the overturning rivers and seas, the sword dragon condensed from sword principle luck quickly moved its body, hoping to avoid the attack of the staff technique. There were many moves in sword principle to avoid attacks, but the premise was that one had to have flexible steps and a flexible body. The dragon body, condensed from thousands of natal swords, not only reached a length of 1,000 meters, but it was also troubled by resentment, so the sword dragon's agility was greatly affected. In the end, the staff technique, whose power reached the peak of the middle 8th level martial venerable realm, heavily blasted the sword dragon's tail. Boom! With a strong roar, more than 700 swords condensed at the sword dragon's tail were blown away by the staff technique. Seeing the countless broken swords rushing to the sword dragon, Yu Haoran directly threw the Rui bell, which he had prepared in advance, at the sword dragon's broken tail. Sensing the pure energy that could help it quickly advance to a higher grade and help it nurture the consciousness of the artifact spirit, the Rui bell, which did not need Yu Haoran's control at all, quickly returned to its original form of several hundred meters long and began to frantically compete with the sword dragon for the essence of the sword wreckage. Compared with ordinary magic weapons, the natal swords contained more essence and were of higher quality. Therefore, after absorbing 2/3 of the essence of the sword wreckage, the Rui bell began to show a trace of yellow, and its volume reached nearly 400 meters. Fouling, what's going on? Pointing to the Rui bell, which was crazily absorbing the essence of the sword wreckage, Xian Yuan shouted excitedly. Yu Haoran once saw the image left by the Bell of Chaos in his previous life, and then asked me to refine it according to the appearance of the Bell of Chaos. In the face of Xuan Yuan's roar, Fouling looked very casual, but in fact he was not calm at all. Chapter 1259. In the Void. When the last trace of the essence of the broken sword was absorbed, the bell suddenly broke free from the control of Yu Haoran's consciousness. Then, like a black hole, the bell's mouth directly enveloped the sword dragon. Fouling, what's going on? Although the wishful bell was not a life source artifact that was integrated with the mind, it was still refined and cultivated step by him. It had a close connection with the mind and soul. Logically speaking, there should not be a situation where he lost control. Therefore, in the face of this sudden change, Yu Haoran immediately asked for help from Fouling in his sea of consciousness. Yu Haoran, when I refined a wishful bell, not only did I use the best materials, but the overall structure of the bell was also completely borrowed from the Bell of Chaos. It can be said that, except for the core mark of the origin of chaos, there is no difference between the wishful bell and the Bell of Chaos. Motioning Yu Haoran not to worry for the time being, Fouling explained in detail why the wishful bell lost control. At the same time, a crazy idea gradually emerged in his heart. Yu Haoran, as the grade of the wishful bell gets higher and higher, the strength of the body's consciousness becomes stronger and stronger. In the future, there will be more and more situations like this where the wishful bell is out of control. Fouling, what should I do? After his rebirth, the wishful bell could be said to be a wish in his heart. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to prioritize the various instruments that could help the wishful bell upgrade every time he went to the treasury. In fact, the solution is very simple, Fouling said with a smile, using his sharp eyes to stop Xian Yuan from interrupting. Yu Haoran, since you have destroyed your own sword, it is better to directly refine the wishful bell into your own soul-bound instrument. In this way, under the control of the mind, no matter how the wishful bell's grade is promoted, no matter how strong the body's consciousness is, it will never be able to get rid of your control. I know. Yu Haoran nodded without hesitation. He decided to listen to Fouling's proposal and refine the wishful bell into his new soul-bound instrument. Fouling, what are you trying to do? He knew that Yu Haoran's consciousness could be monitoring the situation in his sea of consciousness at any time. So Xian Yuan could only use telepathy to ask. Xian Yuan, I, Fouling, will tell you everything you need to know. The tower spirit glared at Xian Yuan coldly and threatened him. You're right, Xian Yuan. However, you'd better shut up about things that you shouldn't know. Otherwise, I'll suppress your body and use it as the essence energy for the wishful bell to advance to a higher level. Xian Yuan could feel the killing intent in the tower spirit's voice. He immediately calmed down and looked at the tower spirit with fear in his eyes. Perhaps it was because the attack of the overturning the seas and river staff technique had caused the sword dragon to suffer heavy injuries. Or perhaps it was because the wishful bell could naturally restrain it. In the face of the wishful bell, the sword dragon's speed of evasion was significantly slower. In the end, it was completely swallowed by the bell. Just after the sword dragon was swallowed by the wishful bell, the swords in the hands of all the swordsmen in the Tianxian continent, in their dantian, and in their storage devices, let out a slight cry at the same time. Yu Haoran looked at the wishful bell that was rapidly shrinking and reintegrating into his soul. After careful observation, he was even more determined to make the wishful bell his soul-bound instrument. However, before that, he had a more important matter to deal with. That was to remove the biggest obstacle to Lu Yuan's future swordsmanship. Yu Haoran, what do you want to do? Without the protection of the Xian Yuan sword and the swordsmanship, Jianying was just a talented, ordinary disciple. Therefore, when he saw Yu Haoran walking towards him, he asked with a terrified expression, "I'm sending you back to the arms of the sword god." Yu Haoran replied with a chuckle as he approached Jianying in the void. "Yu Haoran, I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so arrogant and ignorant just now. I shouldn't have taken the initiative to provoke you. Please let me live." Although there was a faint smile on Yu Haoran's face, Jianying could clearly feel the strong, murderous intent emanating from him. He knew that he had already made up his mind to kill him. Therefore, Jianying begged for mercy as he quickly rushed to the deputy sect master Jian Yuan, who was standing on the Rainbow Cloud Square. "Yu Haoran, Jianying is the hope of our Sky Sword sect. His safety is more important than anything else." Although he was very disappointed with Jianying's cowardice, Jian Yuan had to help when he thought of his identity as the Sky Sword and the fact that he would regain 30% of his swordsmanship. "If you dare to hurt him, our Sky Sword sect will not rest until you are dead. Jian Yuan, can I take your threat as the decision of your heavenly sword sect?" Yu Haoran asked coldly as he stopped 100 meters away from Jian Yuan and pointed his white staff at Jian Yuan and Jianying, who was hiding behind him. "That's right." Although he was only the deputy sect master, Jian Yuan proudly responded to Yu Haoran's question when he recalled the attitude of the sect master and the martial supremacy old ancestors when they found out about Jianying's identity as the Sky Sword. "In that case, I, Yu Haoran, will accept the challenge of your Sky Sword sect." In the face of Jian Yuan's declaration of war, Yu Haoran raised the white staff in his hand and accepted the challenge with a booming voice. Fighting to the death with the Heaven Sword sect, a first-rate sect with powerful offensive power. If it was someone else, everyone present would definitely mock him for his ignorance and arrogance. However, in the face of Yu Haoran's fearless response, the crowd felt that it was a matter of course and couldn't help but feel pity for the Sky Sword sect. After all, Yu Haoran's alchemy ability was enough to stir up countless experts in the entire Tianxin continent. He only needed to refine a few supreme transformation pills and 7 lives mysterious gate pills, and there would be countless experts willing to help him destroy the Sky Sword sect. My Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce announces that from now on, we will cut off all business with the Sky Sword sect. After Yu Haoran officially declared war on the Sky Sword sect, Bian Xingrui's voice of support immediately came from the prince's mansion. After hearing Bian Xingrui's support for Yu Haoran, although Jian Yuan was a little surprised, he didn't really care. Because the business of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce was mostly targeted at experts with great wealth and strength, they didn't have much contact with the Sky Sword sect. Cutting off business with them wouldn't cause any loss or impact. However, when Emperor Qin's imperial edict came from the Joyous Moon Palace, Jian Yuan couldn't help but change his expression. From today onwards, except for Elder Jian Yu and young Master Lu Yuan, the Sky Sword sect disciples are forbidden to enter the southern region. If there are any trespassers, they will be killed without mercy. If there are any trespassers, their 9 generations will be exterminated. Chapter 1260. In front of the prince's mansion, just as the Qin emperor announced the imperial edict, a voice that made Jian Yuan's face turn pale rang out. From today onwards, the Heavenly Martial sect will sever all ties with the Sky Sword sect and forbid any disciple of the Sky Sword sect to step into the territory of the Heavenly Martial sect. Anyone who trespasses without permission will be killed without mercy. Anyone who covers up without permission will be killed without mercy. The ancestor of the Heavenly Martial sect immediately supported Yu Haoran's declaration of war with practical actions. From today onwards, the Bailey clan will sever all ties with the Sky Sword sect and forbid any disciple of the Sky Sword sect to step into the territory of the Bailey clan. Anyone who trespasses without permission will be killed without mercy. Anyone who covers up without permission will be killed without mercy. The head of the Bailey clan, Bailey Shwani, also supported Yu Howren's declaration of war with practical actions. The Zhou clan, the Wu clan, the Flowing Cloud sect. As more and more top forces that could affect the situation in the Tianxian continent began to support Yu Howren with practical actions, Jian Yuan's face turned pale. He thought of the Sky Sword sect's limited resources for cultivation, the disciples and deacons whose emotions were becoming increasingly unstable, and the difficulties of cultivation after being isolated by many top forces. Jian Yuan knew that the isolated Sky Sword sect could really be exterminated, and he would be the main culprit of the sect's extermination. He nurtured Jianing with all his strength in the hope that as the Sky Sword sect, he could lead the sect to become one of the top sects in the Tianxian continent and fulfill the wishes of the ancestors of the Sky Sword sect. If the Sky Sword sect no longer existed, then what was the use of nurturing Jianing with all his strength? Therefore, after a complicated struggle in his heart, Jian Yuan finally made the decision to sacrifice Jian Ying to protect the Sky Sword sect. Emperor's son-in-law, Jian Yuan, was possessed and did such a ridiculous thing. It's all Jian Yuan's fault. Jian Yuan tidied up his clothes and apologized respectfully to Yu Howren, who was floating in the air. I hope you can spare my Sky Sword sect on account of the fact that Jin Yu was once an elder of the Sky Sword sect, and Lu Yuan was once a disciple of the Sky Sword sect. Apologies and begging were just means. What could truly move Yu Howren was Jianing. Therefore, after bowing respectfully and apologizing, Jian Yuan immediately turned around and sealed Jianing. Then, he took 3 steps to the side and gestured. Jianing is at your disposal. Jian Yuan's earlier actions made Yu Howren have a whole new level of respect for him. At the same time, a trace of fear appeared in Yu Howren's heart. Should he take advantage of everyone's support to eliminate Jian Yuan, who might become a hidden danger in the future? Yu Howren looked at Jian Yuan, who bowed his head and apologized. Because of the extreme fear in his heart, a trace of killing intent appeared in his eyes. However, when he saw the sealed Jian Ying from the corner of his eyes, he immediately thought of killing with a borrowed knife and eliminating the hidden danger. Jian Yuan, do you know what day it is today? Yu Howren asked coldly as he slowly landed in front of the residence. It's the big day of your wedding with Princess Ling Fei. Seeing that Yu Howren did not directly kill Jian Ying and instead began to interrogate him, Jian Yuan immediately had a bad feeling. It was as if he was the real target. Jian Yuan, since you know that it's the big day of my wedding with Princess Ling Fei, why did you bring such a thing to discuss me? Do you think that a mere apology will let go of the grudge between me and you and the Sky Sword sect? Yu Howren pressed on. Do you think that's possible? Then what do you need me to do to eliminate the grudge between the son-in-law and the Sky Sword sect? Jian Yuan asked cautiously in the face of Yu Howren's questioning. An arrogant and ignorant junior. Killing him will dirty my hands and ruin the upcoming wedding, Yu Howren said contemptuously as he looked at Jianing, whose eyes were filled with fear. Although Yu Howren did not say it directly, the meaning behind his words was that he wanted Jian Yuan to kill Jianing. Although Jian Yuan did not know that he would be suppressed by the sword principal fate after killing Jianing, he could not face the misunderstanding and blame of the people in the sect if he personally killed the future hope of the sect. Therefore, in the face of Yu Howren's hidden request, Jian Yuan found it difficult to make a decision. Jian Yuan, the auspicious time of your wedding with Princess Ling Fei is not far away. I don't have the time and patience to wait for you to make a decision. Seeing that Jian Yuan was in a dilemma, Yu Howren knew that he was still lacking and immediately exerted pressure with a sneer. Prince Consort, if I personally send Marshal Nephew Jianing back to the arms of the Sword Immortal, I don't know if you can promise to let go of the grudge between you and the Heaven Sword sect. The pressure exerted by Yu Howren completely crushed Jian Yuan's last bit of perseverance. But before he decided to do it, he needed to use Yu Howren's guarantee to resolve the misunderstanding and blame of the people in the sect. After the wedding with Ling Fei, I will enter the secret realm of the Emperor Qin's kingdom to make the final preparations for the hidden genius list in the South region. In the face of Jian Yuan's request for a guarantee, Yu Haoran did not give a direct answer, but he expressed his final attitude by doing what he needed to do. After the trial of the secret realm, I will hold a grand auction with Heavenly World. I don't have time and energy to think about these messy things. Thank you, Prince Consort. Yu Haoran's statement was already a guarantee. After Jian Yuan thanked him, he stepped in front of Jianing. Looking at the pleading and longing expression in Jian Ying's eyes, Jian Yuan shook his head and sighed with a complicated expression. Martial nephew Jianing, don't blame me for being ruthless. In fact, all the troubles today were caused by you. Hope will also be extinguished by you. After sighing, Jian Yuan stretched out his palm and slapped Jian Ying's head heavily. And just as Jian Ying's head was smashed, the swords in the hands of all the swordsmen in the entire Tianxian continent immediately wailed and trembled. The wail was sharp and harsh. Accompanied by the harsh wail, every sword would condense a trace of sword qi. Then these sword qi directly crossed the barrier of space and time and instantly appeared in the air above Xianying City. Hundreds of millions of sword qi slowly condensed into a sword net that covered the sky and the sun, and then directly covered Jian Yuan. Looking at the sword net formed by hundreds of millions of sword qi, Yu Haoran suddenly felt very lucky. He was glad that he had temporarily changed the way to deal with Jianing, because he feared Jian Yuan's scheming. Chapter 1261. In front of the prince's mansion. Looking at the sword net that seemed to cover the sky and cover the sun, Jian Yuan's originally slightly pale face was now as white as a sheet of paper, devoid of blood. However, as the deputy sect leader of the Sky Sword sect and a third tribulation quasi-martial venerable, he quickly calmed down with his strong mental state cultivation. Then, an upper sage stage sword appeared in his hand. At the cost of overdrawing his origin power, soul power, and 100 years of his life, he performed a forbidden sword technique. Vast Sea, the upper sage stage, sword in his hand, instantly shot out thousands of sword qi. The sharp sword qi condensed into a vast sea of sword qi that surged directly toward the sword net that covered him. The expected scene of the sword net being torn apart and pushed back did not appear. The sword net was not affected by the attack of the sea of sword qi at all. It directly penetrated the sea of sword qi and quickly covered Jian Yuan. Similarly, the expected scene of him being torn apart did not appear. The sword net that covered Jian Yuan quickly integrated into his dantian and sea of consciousness, his meridians and internal organs, his blood vessels, and his body. Then countless patterns appeared on his face, neck, and arms. At first glance, he looked like the legendary Spider-Man who had the bloodline of ancient black spiders. Jian Yuan abruptly opened his eyes and looked at Yu Haoran with eyes full of resentment. At this moment, he finally knew why Yu Haoran forced him to kill Jianing. Yu Haoran probably knew that after killing Jianing, he would be sealed and suppressed by the sword principle luck. At this moment, he had a crazy thought of detonating his Dantian's origin energy and his sea of consciousness to drag Yu Haoran down with him. Through the careful observation and feeling earlier, he knew that although the sword net that had fused into his body would not directly harm him, it would restrict his breakthrough in cultivation, restrict his cultivation and comprehension of sword skills, and attract the disgust of hundreds of millions of sword cultivators. It would take the initiative to arouse the hostility of sword cultivators. In other words, not only would his foundation be completely destroyed, but he would also be completely crippled. However, when he saw the sneer in Yu Haoran's eyes and thought of the top forces that had supported him earlier and their loyalty to the sect, he finally suppressed the urge to self-destruct. Then, he glared at Yu Haoran with eyes full of hatred. His sword, Origin, soared into the sky and headed straight for the Sky Sword sect in the central region. Ignoring the hatred in Jian Yuan's eyes, Yu Haoran invited Lu Yuan and Jian Yu with a smile. Senior Jian Yu, Senior Brother Lu, please. Junior Brother Yu, you should understand the situation between me and Master, so don't expect us to give you anything too valuable. Lu Yuan, whose personality had been changed by the blood oath, joked as he followed Yu Haoran towards the officials from the Ministry of Rites. Senior Brother Lu, you and Senior Jinyu only need to hand over your name cards later. In response to Lu Yuan's joke, Yu Haoran replied with a smile and immediately made arrangements for their future. After the wedding, I will ask Ling Fei to arrange a courtyard in the mansion for you and Senior Jinyu to cultivate in the future. Thank you, Junior Brother Yu. Lu Yuan nodded and thanked Yu Haoran without any hesitation. Yu Haoran, please wait a moment. Just as Yu Haoran was making arrangements for Lu Yuan and Jinyu, Thaling in his sea of consciousness suddenly signaled. Before he could ask why Thaling had to wait, the Xian Yuan's sword, which was emitting a dazzling purple light, suddenly flew out of the victor in his sea of consciousness. Lu Yuan, your talent and temperament in the way of the sword are outstanding. I, Xian Yuan, am confident that I can help you break through to the martial god realm in the future and become a peerless sword god in the Tianxian continent. Xian Yuan, who was floating in front of the sword itself, said proudly as he looked at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan stopped smiling and looked coldly at Xian Yuan and the Xian Yuan sword. He shook his head and said calmly, I don't need it. Faced with the Xian Yuan sword, which had existed since the beginning of the world, Lu Yuan's choice and answer were beyond Xuan Yuan's expectations. Even Emperor Qin and Zi Xian of the Joyous Moon Palace, Jinyu, who was standing beside Lu Yuan, as well as the martial saints and future Emperor Wu hidden in the void, were stunned. Senior Xian Yuan, since Senior Brother Lu said he doesn't need it, that means he has no interest in you. Therefore, you should go help other sword geniuses to become sword gods. After decades of brotherhood in his previous life, Yu Haoran understood Lu Yuan's character too well. As someone who was obsessed with the way of the sword was not only a weapon in his hand, but also a brother that he could entrust his life to. As for his current natal sword, it was the first ordinary iron sword he had obtained since he set foot on the way of the sword. After being nourished by sword chi and soul power, as well as absorbing the killing intent and blood essence of his opponents, it had already become a top-grade Saint Realm sword. He would definitely not abandon his natal sword for the Xian Yuan sword. However, after more than 2 years of contact with Thaling, Yu Haoran was very clear about the importance of ancient sword spirits like Thaling and Xian Yuan. Whether it was the increase of one's cultivation and strength, or the expansion of one's state of mind and vision, it had unimaginable benefits. Therefore, Yu Haoran hoped that Lu Yuan would accept the Xian Yuan sword's help. However, the prerequisite was that he had to distinguish the importance and the importance, just like between him and Thaling. Facing his own initiative to follow him, Lu Yuan's answer was that he didn't need it, and Yu Haoran's answer was that he wasn't interested. Immediately, Xian Yuan felt that his self-esteem had been greatly hurt. At this moment, he really wanted to take the Xian Yuan sword and leave immediately, and then assist the Heaven Sword Sect sword hero. He wanted to let Lu Yuan and Yu Haoran know the consequences of rejecting him. However, when he thought of the Heaven Sword Hero and the Human Sword Hero, whose temperament and talent were not as good as the Heaven Sword Hero, Xian Yuan suppressed his urge to leave. As the Dark Sword of the Fourth Sword, although Lu Yuan would not receive the blessing of the Way of the Sword for the time being, his talent, character, pride, and fearlessness were the only things that were worthy of an ancient divine weapon like the Xian Yuan sword. Furthermore, the brotherhood between Lu Yuan and Yu Haoran, as well as Thaling's ambition, made him reluctant to leave. Seeing the anger and unwillingness in Xuan Yuan's eyes, Yu Haoran knew that the test was about to begin. If he continued to ignore him, it was very likely that Xian Yuan would be forced back into the hands of the Heaven Sword Sect's Earth and Human Swords. Therefore, he took a deep breath and persuaded Lu Yuan. Chapter 1262. In front of the prince's mansion. That's right. Seeing Yu Haoran suddenly change his mind and take the initiative to help him persuade Lu Yuan, Xian Yuan was excited and quickly agreed. Lu Yuan, although the material of your sword is very ordinary, I have several ways to improve its quality and grade, so that it can become as powerful as me in the future. Ignoring Xuan Yuan's temptation, Lu Yuan looked at Yu Haoran with a puzzled expression. Brother Lu, if you want to become the sword god in the world and surpass the destiny of the sword in the future, you must have the help of the Xianyuan sword and its spirit. There are some things that couldn't be said directly in front of the spirit, so Yu Haoran could only use the means of telepathy to explain. In addition, the reason why I was able to defeat the spirit was not because Yu Haoran, was strong, but because the Xianyuan sword had suffered an unimaginable injury, and only 1/10,000th of its strength was left. If it can recover its full strength, I'm afraid I won't even have the courage and ability to stand in front of it. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Lu Yuan was silent for a while, then turned his head to look at the spirit, who was full of expectation, and nodded silently. Great! After receiving Lu Yuan's nod, Xianyuan couldn't help but cheer. Then he immediately controlled the Xianyuan sword to merge into Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. Seeing that Lu Yuan finally agreed to accept the help of the spirit, Yu Haoran was happy for him and couldn't help but secretly breathe a sigh of relief. After all, the Xianyuan sword, like Victor, was one of the divine weapons of reincarnation. Xuan Yuan's contact with the Thaling meant that the secret of his reincarnation could be exposed at any time. Since there was a risk of exposure, he had to find a way to minimize the risk. Lu Yuan, who had protected him for life with a blood oath, was the safest way to reduce the risk of the secret of reincarnation. Jinyu, a strong rogue cultivator, and Lu Yuan, a good friend of the prince consort, wished the prince consort and her highness a happy life together. I'll give you 1 high-grade Saint Stage magic weapon and 1 4th-grade spiritual herb. Compared to the gifts given by the previous guests, Jinyu and Lu Yuan's gifts were very light, but the eunuch in charge did not dare to neglect them. He did not need Yu Haoran's instructions and directly led them to the VIP area. As Yu Haoran watched Lu Yuan and Jinyu enter the mansion, he suddenly heard a familiar laughter. Yu Haoran immediately turned around, and then a sincere and happy smile appeared on his face as he greeted them. Junior Yu Haoran greets Sect Leader Yi, Senior Yuan Zhu, and Senior Teng. Prince Consort Ma is too courteous. Seeing Yu Haoran's heartfelt smile, Yi Junin knew that it was because of the ancestor Yuan and Teng Yunjia, but it also made him the envy and jealousy of the people around him. Therefore, his dissatisfaction with Yu Haoran suddenly disappeared a lot, and his attitude was quite gentle. Junior brother Yu, the words of blessing have been written on the gift list. I will not continue to waste my breath. Teng Yunjia said in a very intimate tone as he reached out and patted Yu Haoran on the shoulder. In this regard, Yu Haoran just smiled, and then led the 3 people to the mansion. But at this time, from the far south of Xianyang City, a strange laughter that resounded through the sky was rapidly approaching. Accompanied by the strange laughter, a huge ape more than 100 meters tall rushed to the colorful clouds at a speed several times faster than lightning. Oh no, it's the long-armed ape in the Death Valley. The familiar laughter and figure made the ancestor Yuan, who had a deep memory, change his expression. He quickly took out his natal saber and immediately stood in front of Yu Haoran and Teng Yunjia and reminded them, Ancestor Yuan, don't be nervous, it's my good friend. Yu Haoran appeared in front of the ancestor Yuan in a flash and said with a smile. The ancestor Yuan, whose eyes suddenly widened, looked at Yu Haoran in disbelief, and his heart was full of shock. The ancestor Yuan, who had been seriously injured by the ape in the Death Valley, knew very well how powerful it was. Although he had now successfully passed the mind test of the 3 tribulations of the Quasi, Emperor Wu, with the 7 lives mysterious gate elixir given by Yu Haoran, and his strength had increased by at least dozens of times, he still did not have the confidence to resist the stick technique that the long-armed ape had casually used. Such a powerful long-armed ape turned out to be Yu Haoran's good friend. How could this not shock the ancestor Yuan? Looking at the rapidly shrinking body of the long-armed ape that slowly landed on the colorful cloud square, Yu Haoran immediately greeted it with a smile. Elder Ape, you're here. Little friend Yu, I'm really sorry. That little snake was too cunning and delayed the old ape for some time, so I came a little late." Scratching his head, the long-armed ape said apologetically, "Elder Ape, you're not late at all. The time is just right." Howard smiled and comforted him, but at the same time, he was shocked, because the little snake that the long-armed ape had just mentioned was the nine-headed snake that guarded the dragon's sunflower, the main ingredient needed to refine the supreme Huazuan pill. He did not expect that the long-armed ape, who was seriously injured, not only found the nine-headed snake in such a short time, but also could kill the nine-headed snake that fought against the ancestor Yuan unscathed. He had a new understanding of the strength of the long-armed ape. Being able to detect that Howard's comfort was not out of politeness, the long-armed ape said very happily, "That's good. That's good. Elder Ape, this way, please." After a gesture, Howard took the long-armed ape to the mansion in the EU Palace. This is the long-armed ape that the prince consort once mentioned, and that severely injured the ancestor Yuan with one move. Looking at the long-armed ape, whose height had shrunk to about 1.7 meters, but still exuded a murderous aura, Emperor Qin said with great shock, "Your Majesty, when I was a guest in Lanling City, I once heard Fangling mention this long-armed ape. She said that it was not only the overlord of Death Valley, but also the strongest exotic beast in the southern region." Compared to Emperor Qin's shock, Zi Xian, who once understood the long-armed ape, was even more shocked, because she never thought that Howard's circle of friends would be so wide that even the true overlord of the exotic beasts in the southern region, the long-armed ape, could personally attend his wedding. Thinking of this, the shocking shock was immediately replaced by heartache. She knew that the proportion of the dowry increased this time would be very, very high. "Your Majesty, how much do you think is appropriate to increase the dowry?" Zi Xian asked, clenching her fists. "Empress Dowager, take a look at the gifts from the Heavenly Martial Arts sect and the long-armed ape first." After forcibly suppressing the shock in his heart, Emperor Qin, like Zi Xian, began to worry about the collection in the national treasury for the first time. Chapter 1263. In the void above the prince's mansion. This is one of the 4 great spirit monkeys of ancient times, the direct descendant of the long-armed ape. Zhou Yuz, the head of the Zhou clan, cried out involuntarily when he saw the long-armed ape land on the rainbow auspicious cloud plaza. "Patriarch, is the long-armed ape very powerful?" Zhou Fengxiu, who did not know the origin of a long-armed ape, could not help but ask in surprise when he saw the patriarch, who had a high cultivation, turn pale with shock. With the cultivation of the first tribulation Quasi-Emperor Wu, he can easily defeat the third tribulation Quasi-Emperor Wu. With the cultivation of the third tribulation Quasi-Emperor Wu, he can tie with the Emperor Wu. Speaking of this, Zhou Yuz turned his head to look at Zhou Fengxiu and asked solemnly, "Ancestor Fengxiu, do you think the long-armed ape is powerful?" Z. After hearing the patriarch's evaluation of the long-armed ape's strength, Zhou Fengxiu could not help but gasp. Behind Zhou Yuz, there was a girl with a white silk veil on her face and a white corset dress. She gave people a feeling of emptiness and spirituality, and her beautiful eyes were also full of shock. Then, the emptiness and spirituality girl glanced at the long-armed ape, and then her eyes moved to Howard. There was a different meaning in her eyes. "Who are you?" Following Howard to the front of the mansion, the long-armed ape immediately felt a strong hostility. It looked up at the ancestor Yuan, who was hostile to it, and asked with a slightly unhappy expression, "Nine-headed snake, dragon sunflower, the power of one stick." They had only fought for a month, and even the opponent who had been seriously injured had been forgotten. This made the ancestor Yuan feel a kind of contempt and humiliation. Therefore, he stared at the long-armed ape with red eyes and reminded it with gritted teeth. "Oh." After thinking carefully, the long-armed ape said with a sudden realization, "It turns out that you are the Quasi-Emperor Wu expert who wants to seize the nine-headed snake guardian dragon sunflower." "That's not right." Long-armed ape asked with a frown. Although I only used less than 30% of my strength, with your strength at that time, you couldn't have withstood the power of my staff. After that, your soul must have been severely injured and you must have fainted, your knowledge close to collapse. Seeing the daggers drawn between long-armed ape and Yuan Zhu, Yu Haoran hurriedly stood between the man and the ape, explaining to long-armed ape first. Elder ape, your speculation just now was correct. Senior Yuan Zhu was sure that his soul was in a coma and his sea of consciousness was about to collapse. It was this junior who used the third order, 9th grade 7 treasure soul returning pill to heal Senior Yuan Zhu's injuries. Then he turned around and pleaded to Ancestor Yuan. Ancestor Yuan, Elder Ape can be said to be my friend despite the difference in age. I hope you can let go of the past grudges for my sake. Looking at Yu Haoran, who was sincerely begging, Ancestor Yuan took a deep breath and glared at long-armed ape. Then he turned and walked to the front of the official of the Ministry of Rites and took out his name card, gift list, and storage ring. Then he looked at long-armed ape with provocative eyes. After glancing at the contents of the gift list, the middle-aged eunuch's left hand holding the gift list could not help but tremble. Then he looked up at Yu Haoran. Glancing at Ancestor Yuan, whose eyes were full of provocation, Yu Haoran immediately guessed the reason why the middle-aged eunuch questioned him. He was afraid that Ancestor Yuan had added a lot of top treasures to the gift list just now. His purpose in doing so was to use this method to humiliate the long-armed ape and use it to vent his anger. In this regard, Yu Haoran could not stop Ancestor Yuan's means except to smile bitterly. He could only signal the middle-aged eunuch to read according to the gift list. One of the 7 top sects in the Tianxian continent, Sect Master Yi Junan, Supreme Elder Tung Yuan Zhu, and Legacy Disciple Tung Yunjie of the Heavenly Martial Sect, wished the Prince Consort and Her Highness the Princess a jade tree with jade branches and soaring dragon and phoenix. Gift 9 high-grade Sage Realm Magic Tools, 6 top-grade Sage Realm Magic Tools, 3 low-grade Venerable Realm Magic Tools, and 1 mid-grade Venerable Realm Magic Tool. Perhaps because the gifts given by Ancestor Yuan were not only numerous, but each type was very precious, the middle-aged eunuch consciously paused to give the guest time to adapt. Inside EU Palace. What is Ancestor Yuan Zhu doing? Just the number of magic tools given was 19, among which there were 3 low-grade Venerable Realm Magic Tools and 1 mid-grade Venerable Realm Magic Tool. This made Zixuan, who had been distressed about the dowry, could not help but grit her teeth and ask. Turning his head to look at Zixuan, Emperor Qin did not answer her question just now. He just smiled bitterly and shook his head. With the special relationship between the great Emperor Qin Kingdom, Heavenly Martial Sect, and the Tang family, Emperor Qin had heard of Ancestor Yuan's character and knew that he was a competitive person. Since he could not defeat long-armed ape with his own strength, then he would beat him in the matter of giving gifts. To put it bluntly, it was to fight for pride. In the void above the prince's mansion, after hearing the middle-aged eunuch read out the gifts, Deputy Sect Leader Sun Shoyu from the Flowing Clouds sect could not help but frown and look at the storage ring on his finger. Then, he turned his head and ordered a white-haired old man standing behind him. Elder Su, please use the method of tearing the void to return to the sect and tell the sect leader about the gifts given by the Heavenly Martial Sect. See what the sect leader thinks. Yes, Deputy Sect Leader. After nodding in response, the white-haired old man called Elder Su directly tore the void in front of him and stepped into the gap, completely disappearing into the void. After pausing for about 5 seconds, the middle-aged eunuch continued to read out 9 high-grade rank, 8 spiritual veins, 6 high-grade rank, 7 spiritual veins, 3 high-grade rank, 6 spiritual veins, and 1 high-grade rank, 5 spiritual vein, 3 low-grade Venerable Realm Magic Tools, and 1 mid-grade Venerable Realm Magic Tool had already shocked everyone present. Even the spiritual veins were given as gifts of the same level as the magic tools. Everyone present was completely stunned. However, what made everyone present even more crazy was the gifts that the middle-aged eunuch read out for the third time. 9 fifth-grade spiritual herbs, 6 fourth-grade spiritual herbs, 3 third-grade spiritual herbs, and 1 second-grade spiritual herb. At this time, not to mention the guests present, even Yuhauran began to be surprised. He glanced at Ancestor Yuan, whose eyes were still full of provocation, and finally looked at Tung Yunjie. In the face of Yuhauran's questioning gaze, Tung Yunjie shrugged with a wry smile and shook his head helplessly. 9 drops of 100 drug liquid, 6 drops of 1,000 drug liquid, 3 drops of myriad drug liquid, and 1 drop of myriad drug milk. However, what really made everyone speechless or completely numb was the gifts that the middle-aged eunuch read out for the 4th time. Fortunately, after reading out the gifts for the 4th time, the middle-aged eunuch finally put away the gift list. Not only did everyone's expression gradually return to normal, but even Yuhauran could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 1264. In front of the prince's mansion. Looking at the middle-aged eunuch handing the gift list to the official of the Ministry of Rites, the Ancestor Yuan looked at the long-armed ape proudly and said in a provocative tone, "Brother Ape, since you and I are both the elder of the prince consort and the top group of experts in the Tianxin continent, if the wedding gift is too shabby, I'm afraid we won't have the face to stay in the mansion to attend the wedding." As one of the 4 great spiritual monkeys inherited from the ancient times, the long-armed ape was a direct descendant of the long-armed ape. Its real wisdom and EQ were not inferior to an old fox. The Ancestor Yuan's temporary change of the gift list could be hidden from others, but it could not be hidden from the long-armed ape whose strength was infinitely close to the realm of Emperor Wu. Combined with the hostility to it from the beginning, it immediately guessed the Ancestor Yuan's idea or strategy. As the real overlord of the billions of beasts in the southern region, the arrogant long-armed ape was also a master who refused to admit defeat easily. Therefore, in the face of the Ancestor Yuan's provocation using the gift, its counterattack was very simple. Stepping in front of the middle-aged eunuch, the long-armed ape growled and ordered, "Get out of the way." After feeling the strong, evil aura of the long-armed ape, the middle-aged eunuch immediately stepped back with a pale face and then looked at Yuhauran in panic. "It's okay." Yuhauran smiled and comforted. "The king of beasts in the southern region, the long-armed ape, wishes you and the princess a happy wedding." Although its IQ and EQ were not inferior to the old fox, the predicament of too little literary knowledge reserve made the long-armed ape could only say the most common blessing dryly. But none of the guests at the scene mocked it for this, even the Ancestor Yuan, who was hostile to it. Also knowing that it could not express a blessing full of beautiful meaning, the long-armed ape immediately read out the gift it had sent. 18 upper-grade Saint Realm magic instruments, 9 upper-grade Saint Realm magic instruments, 6 lower-grade Venerable Realm magic instruments, 3 middle-grade Venerable Realm magic instruments, and 1 upper-grade Venerable Realm magic instrument. Sizzle. After hearing the number and quality of the magic tools sent by the long-armed ape, whether it was the top sects and families hidden in the void, Emperor Qin and Zi Xian in the Joyous Moon Palace, or Bian Xingrui and Wu Xiqing, who had entered the mansion earlier, they couldn't help but gasp. The VIP area of the mansion. Guild leader, I had thought that even if we couldn't win first place with the gifts we prepared, we would at least be able to rank in the top 3. Now, however, that doesn't seem to be the case, Bian Xingrui said, shaking his head and smiling bitterly. Great Elder, it's only within our means to be a businessman. Although he was shocked, Wu Xiqing did not have a close relationship with Yuhauran. He did not want to waste too much of the Chamber of Commerce's qualifications because of a battle of face. Therefore, when he saw Bian Xingrui shaking his head and smiling bitterly, he reminded him with a serious expression. In response, Bian Xingrui shrugged, a trace of disappointment flashing in his eyes. Yun Xiang, who was sitting next to Bian Xingrui, had a trace of coldness in her eyes. Compared to the shock of the crowd, the original proud face of the ancestor of the origin instantly became gloomy, especially after seeing the slightly provocative gaze of the long-armed ape. A trace of madness emerged in his eyes. Lord Yi, Yunjia, after the long-armed ape has finished reading the gifts, you must stop the ancestor of the origin from acting on impulse in time to avoid really hurting everyone's feelings. Noticing the red blood vessels in the ancestor of the origin's eyes, Yu Haoran immediately knew that his emotions had reached the edge of losing control. Although this kind of emotional loss would neither affect the upcoming wedding nor bring any harm to the ancestor of the origin, it would affect the resolution of the grievances between the two sides. Therefore, Yu Haoran immediately used divine thought to inform Yi Junan and Tung Yunjia. Nodding to Yu Haoran, Yi Junan and Tung Yunjia stood on the left and right of the ancestor of the origin, ready to stop the ancestor of the origin who might act on impulse at any time. After withdrawing a trace of provocation, the long-armed ape continued to read aloud. 18 spiritual veins of the 8th level upper grade, 9 spiritual veins of the 7th level upper grade, 6 spiritual veins of the 6th level upper grade, 3 spiritual veins of the 5th level upper grade, and 1 spiritual vein of the 4th level lower grade. In the EU Palace. Crazy, completely crazy. After hearing the number and grade of the spiritual veins given by the long-armed ape as a gift, Zixian completely lost control and stood up directly, roaring with an angry expression. Your Majesty, why don't you directly take the treasury of the great Emperor Qin Kingdom as a dowry and give it all to Yu Haoran? In the face of the Empress Dowager Zixian's loss of control, the Emperor Qin was also deeply depressed and heartbroken in his heart and did not know what to say. But Qin Lingfei couldn't help whispering to herself, if all of it is given to Haoran, I have no objection. Qin Lingfei, what did you just say? In Qin Lingfei's boudoir, other than the 6 palace maids who didn't dare to speak at all, there were only the 3 of them. So, although her voice was very low, it was still heard by Zixian. Thinking of how Qin Lingfei, who had been doted on since childhood, was actually willing to give away the treasury that her family had painstakingly accumulated for thousands of years to the prince consort for nothing, the realization of a married daughter spilled water made her immediately ask angrily. I didn't say anything. Seeing the furious Zixian, Qin Lingfei hurriedly shook her head to deny it, but a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Empress Dowager, please calm down. Ling Fei just made a slip of the tongue. After fiercely glaring at Qin Lingfei, the Emperor Qin said with a smile, the prince consort is a noble person who treats money like dirt. He doesn't care about the amount of our dowry, so he only needs to increase it by 30% from the original foundation. After hearing Emperor Qin's decision, the anger in Zixian's heart gradually subsided, but when she heard that her dowry had suddenly shrunk countless times, Qin Lingfei was suddenly unhappy. However, after seeing Emperor Qin's fierce eyes, she could only pout and sulk alone. In front of the prince's mansion, hearing that the spiritual vein given by the long-armed ape was not only double the number, but also an additional spiritual vein of the 4th rank, even the rich Yu Haoran couldn't help but look at it in amazement. Although the 4th rank spiritual vein was only a small grade higher than the 5th rank spiritual vein, there is a world of difference in the spiritual energy storage between the two. More importantly, the 4th rank spiritual vein had a high probability of producing spirit stones of the 3rd rank or above, while the 5th rank spiritual vein could only produce spirit stones of the 3rd rank or above. Even the rich Yu Haoran was shocked by the big gift of the long-armed ape, let alone the ancestor Yuan who took the initiative to provoke him. The red blood vessels in his eyes gradually returned to normal as the long-armed ape shouted out the 4th rank spiritual vein. The original idea of venting his anger by giving a congratulatory gift was completely extinguished. After cupping his hands at Yu Haoran, the ancestor Yuan led Yi Junan and Tung Yunjia into the mansion with a lonely expression. Chapter 1265. In front of the prince's mansion, when a eunuch in charge rushed into the mansion to make arrangements for the ancestor Yuan and the others, Yu Haoran immediately reminded the long-armed ape, who was about to announce the 3rd gift, with his divine telekinesis. Elder Ape, the ancestor Yuan has admitted defeat. You can stop now. Facing Yu Howren's persuasion, the long-armed ape shook its head and continued to announce loudly. 18 6th-grade spiritual herbs, 9 5th-grade spiritual herbs, 6 4th-grade spiritual herbs, 3 3rd-grade spiritual herbs, and 1 2nd-grade spiritual herb. After announcing the number and grade of the spiritual herbs, the long-armed ape used his divine telekinesis to explain to Yu Howren the real reason why it gave the gift just now. My young friend, even without the provocation of that human expert, I was planning to give you these gifts. It's just that the way it was given was in private and not announced openly like now. After hearing the long-armed ape's explanation, Yu Howren felt a warm current in his heart and thanked it. Thank you, Elder Ape. Ha! After laughing into the sky, the long-armed ape bent its legs slightly and planned to return to Death Valley. After all, the relationship between human warriors and exotic beasts in the Tianshan continent was not very harmonious. Being able to receive Yu Howren's invitation personally already made the long-armed ape feel very touched. If it continued to stay and attend the wedding of the two, it would probably bring a lot of trouble to Yu Howren. Therefore, it would not continue to stay. However, before its slightly bent legs could really exert force, it was suddenly stopped by a palm on its shoulder. Elder Ape, take a look at the prince's mansion that I personally built, and then drink the wedding wine that Ling Fei and I offer before you decide whether to leave or not. Yu Howren suggested with a smile as he forcefully held down the long-armed ape that wanted to leave. My young friend, if I continue to stay, I'll definitely give you. Directly interrupting the long-armed ape's explanation, Yu Howren said with a smile. Elder Ape, Yu Howren, do as I please. Since I don't care about what others think, no one can influence what I do. At this point, Yu Howren's gaze turned to the central region, and a chill gradually appeared in his eyes. If someone wants to use our relationship to cause trouble, Yu Howren, will take it. My young friend, if someone really causes trouble, I'll be the first to twist his head. Yu Howren's fearlessness completely. The armed ape's gaze swept across the experts hiding in the clouds of the void and threatened with a ferocious expression. Going by my sister, seeing that the long-armed ape was willing to stay and attend the wedding, Yu Howren immediately instructed a young eunuch who was running errands. Then he turns long-armed ape. Elder Ape, my background is rather simple. I don't have too many close people around me. Currently, only my sister is in the mansion, so I can only ask her to show you around. No problem. Staying to attend the wedding was just an attitude. The long-armed ape was neither elegant nor in the mood to tour the mansion. Hence, it didn't matter who showed it around. Sister, this is Elder Ape. He's the overlord of billions of exotic beasts in the southern region. He's also our elder. Please show him around the mansion. Yu Howren reminded Yusiki, who was rushing over. Elder Ape, this way please. Being an elder was secondary. Being the overlord of billions of exotic beasts in the southern region was what really mattered to Yusiki. She immediately led the long-armed ape into the mansion respectfully. Initially, it was just a casual tour. However, the moment it stepped into the mansion, it immediately stopped. After carefully sensing the heaven and earth chi in the mansion, the long-armed ape's face was filled with astonishment. The heaven and earth chi that it had just absorbed had unlocked a piece of inherited memory sealed in its bloodline. After receiving the inherited memory, it knew that it had found the opportunity to break through to the Emperor realm. Let's go. Seeing the long-armed ape follow Yusiki into the mansion, Zhou Yu's tidied up his clothes slightly before giving orders to Zhou Fengshu and the girl behind him. Clan leader, there are still a dozen or so experts from the inherited clans and sects who haven't come yet. If we go now, won't we lose face? Zhou Fengshu hurriedly reminded the clan leader when he saw that the clan leader was planning to come early to congratulate them. Zhou Yu's reminded with a cold smile as he scanned the clans and sects who were still maintaining their status and fussing over the order of appearance. There's less than 10 minutes until the auspicious time for the bride's wedding. With Yu Howren's unruly personality, I'm afraid he won't miss the auspicious time just to receive guests. So, if you don't want the head eunuch to personally receive you, this is your last chance to come into direct contact with Yu Haoran. After hearing Zhou Yu's reminder, respect immediately surfaced in Zhou Fengshu's eyes. With Zhou Yu's leading the Zhou clan, there was no need to worry about not being able to regain the clan's former glory. To be able to maintain a clear head in the face of constant changes and shocks, the Zhou clan had no need to worry about not being able to regain their former glory. After watching his sister enter the mansion with a long-armed ape, Yu Haoran did some calculations and realized that there were less than 9 minutes until the auspicious time for the bride's wedding. He wanted to instruct the little eunuch who ran errands to invite head Eunuch Jiang to help receive the guests, so that he could prepare the means to receive Ling Fei. However, Thaling's reminder in his sea of consciousness forced him to turn around and look at the 3 people who walked out of thin air. When he saw the girl in a white corset dress standing beside Zhou Fengshu, who gave off a feeling of emptiness and spirituality, his expression changed slightly and an uncontrollable excitement immediately surged in his heart. Yu Haoran, what happened? Thaling immediately asked anxiously, having never felt such a drastic change in Yu Haoran's emotions before. Thaling, do you still remember the love burial flower that you and I accidentally obtained from the Red Rock in the Blue Moon's secret realm? The drastic change in his emotions caused Yu Haoran's voice, which was formed using his consciousness, to become somewhat hoarse. Of course I remember. Nodding his head, Thaling's thoughts returned to more than a year ago, when he was training at the Red Rock in the Blue Moon secret realm. At that time, when we encountered the love burial flower, you inexplicably fell into extreme grief and indignation. You even asked me to transplant the love burial flower into the victor. At this point, Thaling looked through the space in his sea of consciousness at the girl who was slowly flying towards the rainbow, auspicious clouds. He suddenly realized that this bright and spirituality girl must have had a special emotional entanglement with the love burial flower in Yu Haoran's previous life. However, the previous life was the previous life, and this life was this life. No matter how deep the emotional entanglement between the two of them was in his previous life, at this moment, it was his and Ling Fei's wedding day. Thaling did not wish for him to do anything that would hurt Qin Ling Fei. Therefore, Thaling had no choice but to remind him with a solemn expression. Chapter 1266. In front of the prince's mansion, Thaling's reminder caused Yu Haoran to immediately wake up from his grief and indignation. Thinking of Ling Fei's sincerity and the promise he once made to her, he took a deep breath and desperately suppressed the emotions that constantly surged in his heart. Fortunately, his strong state of mind allowed him to completely calm down when Zhou Fengshu and the other 2 slowly landed on the rainbow, auspicious cloud plaza. Senior Zhou, Yu Haoran tried his best to let a happy smile appear on his face as he took the initiative to welcome him. Prince Consort, let this old man introduce you. Facing Yu Haoran, who took the initiative to welcome him, Zhou Fengshu respectfully pointed at Zhou Yu's and introduced him. This is the clan leader of the Zhou clan, Zhou Yu's. Yu Haoran's body trembled slightly as a look of shock flashed across his eyes. After the refinement of the 7 Lives mysterious gate pill in the Hengduan Mountains was completed, he had listened to Thaling explain the origins of the Zhou clan. He knew how glorious the Zhou clan was during the Middle Ages and how powerful the Zhou clan, which had been passed down to the present day, was. The dignified Zhou clan's clan head had personally come to attend his wedding. No matter what the clan head's intentions were, it could be said that he had given Yu Haoran enough face. Therefore, Yu Haoran hurriedly bowed respectfully after he was shocked. Junior Yu Haoran greets clan leader Zhou. Prince Consort is too polite. Zhou Yu's replied with a gentle attitude. Zhou Mengling greets Prince Consort. Just as Zhou Yu's responded, the girl in white standing beside him took the initiative to greet him. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran returned the greeting with a smile. Haoran greets junior sister Zhou. Clan leader Zhou, elder Zhou, junior sister Zhou, please. After greeting Zhou Mingling, Yu Haoran suppressed the doubts that kept surging in his heart as he smiled and waved his hand. His emotions were not affected by Zhou Mingling at all. Yu Haoran, are you sure you had a relationship with this Zhou Mingling girl in your past life? When Yu Haoran led the 3 Zhou clan members to the front of the mansion to register, Thaling frowned and asked in his sea of consciousness. Thaling, what did you find? Yu Haoran was already suspicious because of Zhou Mingling's name, and Thaling's interrogation made his suspicions even more real, so he immediately asked, Yu Haoran, this Zhou Mingling girl is not simple. Not only does she have a stunning appearance, but her state of mind, physical body, yuan power, soul power, and laws have all reached the level of a martial saint. If she wants to break through to the martial saint realm, she only needs a single thought. If you fight her now, your chances of winning are less than 30%. Thaling introduced with a solemn expression. Furthermore, according to my conjecture, the reason why Zhou Mingling has been suppressing her cultivation breakthrough is because she wants to obtain first place in the 5 regions hidden dragon battle. Then, with the help of the enormous hidden dragon fate, she can directly break through to the 3rd grade martial saint realm. After introducing her to this point, Thaling frowned again and asked with a tone full of doubt, if we were to return to our previous life, then even without the energy feedback from the explosion of the demon god's tomb, Zhou Mingling would still be an aloof and lofty woman. How could you possibly have any emotional entanglements with her? Thaling, perhaps I mistook her for someone else. Thaling's detailed introduction of Zhou Mingling's strength completely dispelled the doubts in Yu Haoran's heart. His mood instantly relaxed as he replied, in your past life, although that girl's surname was also Zhou, her name was Zhou Xuefei. Although she also had a devastatingly beautiful appearance, her talent and qualifications were very ordinary. Thaling did not dispel the doubts in his heart because of Yu Haoran's explanation. He continued to ask, Yu Haoran, then why did you mistake Zhou Mingling for that girl in the beginning? An ethereal and lively temperament, melancholy and tender eyes. Yu Haoran gave the reason and explanation for his mistake. Although Thaling did not say much, the doubt in his eyes did not disappear. Instead, it became more intense. This was because he suddenly thought of a secret technique from ancient times. It was a secret technique that could cut off the doppelganger that affected one's martial cultivation. The Zhou clan's patriarch Zhou Yu's, great elder Zhou Fengxiu, and the patriarch's beloved daughter Zhou Mingling wished the prince consort and Her Highness the Princess a happy life together. 3 Saint Realm best grade magic tools, 3 Venerable Realm low grade magic tools, 3 7th level upper grade spiritual veins, 3 drops of 1000 drug milk, 3 3rd level spiritual herbs, and 3 sea soul nourishing beads. Compared to the gifts given by the ancestor Yuan and the long-armed ape, the gifts given by the Zhou clan seemed a bit shabby, but no one at the scene dared to despise them. After all, it was already a supreme honor for the Zhou clan's patriarch to come to the wedding in person. After watching the 3 people of the Zhou clan enter the mansion, Yu Haoran ignored the experts of the Flowing Clouds sect who came out of the void. After ordering the little eunuch to ask Director Jiang and the Meng ancestor to greet the guests on his behalf, he also flashed into the mansion. Damn it! Seeing that Yu Haoran ignored him and the deputy sect master and entered the mansion, Elder Su, who had just rushed back, immediately growled with a gloomy face. Frowning slightly, the deputy sect master of the Flowing Clouds sect, Sun Shoyu, also flashed a trace of displeasure in his eyes. Although the strength and reputation of the Flowing Clouds sect could not be compared with the Zhou clan, as one of the 7 top sects in the Tianxian continent, it had the qualifications and ability to make Yu Haoran personally greet them respectfully. However, when 9 pure dragon roars suddenly sounded from the prince's mansion, Sun Shoyu immediately calculated the time and suddenly knew the reason why Yu Haoran did not take the initiative to greet the guests. Thinking that Zhou Yu's could still maintain a calm state of mind in an environment where the situation was constantly changing, Sun Shoyu's heart immediately surged with a strong sense of fear. Elder Su, The auspicious time has arrived. Yu Haoran needs to personally greet the bride, not deliberately looking down on us. After reminding Elder Su with a faint expression, Sun Shuyu slowly flew to the rainbow cloud square. He knew that Yu Haoran must arrange for others to greet the late guests. Roar! Accompanied by the purest dragon roar, a giant red dragon that was 99 meters long quickly rushed out of the mansion and slowly landed on the rainbow cloud square. This is a fire elemental giant dragon that possesses the purest direct bloodline of the divine dragon. After seeing the giant red dragon land on the rainbow cloud square, the Dong clan's third elder, who was proficient in beast taming, could not help but involuntarily cry out from the clouds and the void. In fact, there was no need for the Dong clan's third elder to involuntarily point it out. Everyone present could see that the giant red dragon was extraordinary. After all, its beautiful lines, dazzling dragon scales, and majestic aura were far superior to those exotic beasts and flood dragons that possessed the bloodline of the divine dragon. Roar! Chapter 1267. In front of the prince's mansion. This is a wood elemental dragon with the purest bloodline of the divine dragon. The third elder of the Dong family continued to exclaim when he saw the green dragon landing on the rainbow auspicious cloud square. Roar! With the third dragon roar, the third blue dragon, which was 99 meters long, slowly landed on the rainbow auspicious cloud square. This is a water elemental dragon with the purest bloodline of the divine dragon. Then the fourth green dragon, the fifth gray dragon. It wasn't until the ninth dragon, which was also 99 meters long and completely purple, slowly landed on the square covered with 7-colored auspicious clouds that the Dong family's third elder, who had recovered from his shock and absent-mindedness, immediately rushed to the square covered with 7-colored auspicious clouds and muttered to himself with an excited expression on his face. 9 color dragons of 9 elements. These are the 9 purest branches of the divine dragon. I didn't expect Dong Jingjun to see such a complete set of 9 elemental dragons in his lifetime. Roar! After the 9 color dragons of 9 elements landed on the rainbow auspicious cloud square, another roar, which sounded like a dragon, a horse, and a cow, came from the prince's mansion. Although the roar of the strange beast was a little weird, it had an indescribable power that calmed down the excitement of the people on the scene. Along with the weird roar, a beautiful divine beast, which was 99 meters tall and had the head of a lion, the horns of a deer, the eyes of a tiger, the body of an elk, the scales of a dragon, and the tail of an ox, slowly rose into the sky from the mansion. This is the ancient divine beast Kirin, the real divine beast Kirin. Looking at the divine beast, which was slowly flying toward the rainbow auspicious cloud square, the third elder of the Dong family, who had finally calmed down, lost control of his emotions and shouted again. The birth of Kirin is an auspicious sign. Could it be that the wedding of the prince consort and Princess Ling Fei was blessed by heaven and earth? In the official residence of the 6 ministries in Xianyang City, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rites, Hong Dongya, sighed with mixed feelings. The birth of Kirin, the rise of Confucianism. Behind him, the 10-some surviving Confucians excitedly fell to their knees, cheering with tears streaming down their faces. As the Confucian scholars from the Ministry of Rites knelt down and shouted, countless low-level martial artists and commoners of the entire Xianyang city walked onto the streets and also knelt down and shouted. Inside EU Palace Hall, when Zixuan saw the 9-colored giant dragon docilely crawling on the 7-colored auspicious cloud plaza and the divine beast Kirin slowly descending, the pained expression in her eyes was replaced by shock and envy. Zixian looked at Qin Lingfei with envy when she saw the blue-clothed young man who was standing on the back of the mythical beast, Qilin. He gave off a gentle and elegant temperament, but he also gave off a domineering aura. Qin Lingfei, on the other hand, had an unconcealable look of happiness on her face. It seems that Prince Consort Ma has already fulfilled his promise to Zhun and Ling Fei. Looking at Yu Haoran, who is riding on the Qilin divine beast and accompanied by 9 colored, 9 elemental dragons, the Qin Emperor sighed with relief. Then, he turned his head and ordered Zixian, Empress Dowager, since Prince Consort Ma has already prepared such a grand wedding for Princess Ling Fei, then, as her family, we cannot be stingy. On the basis of adding all the dowry, increase the amount by 3 times. All right. Regarding this, Zixian did not show any heartache and reluctance like before. She nodded her head in agreement, making Qin Ling Fei's face overjoyed. Empress Dowager, since Prince Consort Ma has already set off to escort the bride, then you should quickly arrange for people to prepare for the wedding ceremony. Emperor Qin ordered as he got up and left the Yue Palace. In front of the prince's mansion, just as the mythological beast Kirin slowly descended on the 7-colored auspicious cloud plaza, the door of the mansion automatically opened. Yu Haoran, who had changed into a red scholar's robe, stepped out. Yu Haoran cupped his hands in greeting to the many guests who had walked out of the clouds and the void, then walked up to the divine beast, the Qilin. The tall and handsome mythological beast Kirin immediately lowered its body, allowing Yu Haoran to step on its head and stand on its back. Let's go. Looking left and right at the 9 dragons, Yu Haoran ordered faintly, roar. The 9 colored dragons roared towards the sky and directly soared into the sky. The mythological beast Kirin also flew into the sky. Then, the red and blue dragons circled in front of Kirin, the black and white dragons circled behind Kirin, the green and blue dragons circled on the left side of Kirin, the gray and yellow dragons circled on the right side of Kirin, and the purple dragon circled on top of Kirin. Then, under the lead of the red and blue dragons, Yu Haoran stepped on a mythological beast Kirin and flew away from the 7-colored auspicious cloud plaza. Then, he slowly landed on the main street of Xianyang City. Seeing the mythological dragon and mythological beast Kirin appear in front of them, the pedestrians on the street immediately retreated to the sides. The warriors and ordinary people below the martial grandmaster realm immediately knelt on the ground emotionally. The experts below the martial royal realm immediately bowed and saluted. If Prince Consort Ma is willing to hold such a wedding for me, I can even be a concubine or a bed-warming maid. Just as Yu Haoran stepped on the mythological beast Kirin and passed by a shop along the street, a beautiful girl sighed with envy. Girl Yu, although you are good-looking and come from a noble family, you're still not qualified to be Prince Consort Ma's concubine. A beautiful girl standing beside her also showed an envious look, but she knew her place very well and reminded her. Sister Xing, you are so heartless. Can't you just let me fantasize for a while? The girl called Girl Yu rolled her eyes at her companion, who interrupted her fantasy and complained with a dissatisfied expression. The prince's mansion was not far from the imperial palace. With Kirin's huge body, it took less than an hour to reach the imperial palace. Stop, she gently signaled to Kirin and the dragons. Except for the purple dragon that continued to circle above her head, the other 8 dragons obediently crawled on the ground. Yu Haoran jumped down from Kirin's back and strode toward the tightly shut gates of the imperial palace. Prince Consort Ma, although you are of noble status, you are the bridegroom who is being bullied everywhere today. If you want us to open the gates and let you in, we need a little something. Just as Yu Haoran strode to the gates of the imperial palace, a group of palace maids' teasing voices suddenly came from behind the gates. Although he had already discussed the wedding procedures with Emperor Qin and canceled the so-called blocking of the bride, he knew that many people in the imperial harem who were dissatisfied with him would definitely take this opportunity to vent their anger. Therefore, Yu Haoran, who had already prepared for this, smiled and took out 105th-level first-grade spiritual stones and 26th-level first-grade pills that could directly increase one's cultivation from his storage ring. He then placed them on both sides of the gates of the imperial palace. Then, he turned his head and spoke to the crowd. Chapter 1268. Xianyang City, in front of the imperial palace. Prince Consort, are you sure? A young man at the peak of ninth grade, martial master, immediately asked in surprise. What do you think? Taking a few steps back, Yu Haoran asked with a smile, what do you think? The spirit stones and pills are mine. After receiving Yu Haoran's confirmation, the young man excitedly rushed towards the imperial palace's gates. Hearing the commotion outside the gates, the eunuchs and palace maids who were prepared to stop Yu Haoran from entering the imperial palace immediately opened the gates and joined in the fight for the spirit stones and pills. Yu Haoran took advantage of the situation and rushed into the imperial palace, then hastened his steps towards the joyous moon palace. Fortunately, the women in the imperial harem knew that Yu Haoran's temper was not very good and did not dare to go too far. Therefore, they did not prepare too many methods to obstruct him, allowing him to smoothly arrive at the joyous moon palace. Waving his hand to the drummers, the ceremonial team, and the people carrying the flower bridge, Yu Haoran indicated for them to withdraw. Prince Consort, this is not in accordance with the imperial family's etiquette and rules. The eunuch who was in charge of the imperial harem reminded Yu Haoran with a bitter smile. Because from his point of view, Yu Haoran definitely wanted to lead the princess out of the joyous moon palace, leave the imperial palace, and then ride the divine beast Kirin back to the prince's mansion to complete the entire process. However, according to the rules of the imperial harem, before entering the bridal chamber after 3 kneels and 9 kowtows, the bride and groom could not have any contact, and the bride's feet could not touch the ground. Otherwise, it would be considered inauspicious. Head eunuch Liu, don't worry, this prince consort will not break the rules. After indicating for the imperial harem to be at ease, Yu Haoran raised his head to look at the sky above the imperial harem and called out softly, "Little butterfly." Following Yu Haoran's call, the clouds above the imperial harem were blown away by the wind, revealing a giant butterfly with a wingspan of more than 90 meters, displaying 9 different colors, its form elegant and noble. The giant butterfly, flapping its wings, began to descend slowly. It stopped about a kilometer away from the palace and began to dance. Along with the graceful dance, a faint fragrance quickly spread out. 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 100,000 miles, 100,000 miles. In less than a minute, the fragrance emitted by the giant butterfly had spread to an area of several thousand miles. All of the butterfly-shaped beasts that caught the scent of the faint fragrance, regardless of whether they were exalted realm 100-cloud starry butterflies or ordinary clear spirit butterflies, would immediately flap their wings and fly towards Xianyang City and the imperial palace with all their might. Look, butterflies, so many butterflies. The citizens of Xianyang City, who were originally attracted by the dancing giant butterflies, were soon alarmed by the violent wind whistling behind them. When they turned their heads to look, they were immediately attracted by the countless butterflies of various elements flying rapidly toward them. Among them, a martial king girl was so excited that she started shouting loudly. In the VIP area of the prince's mansion, this is Zhou Yu's, who was greeting the patriarchs and elders of the inherited families who had just entered the VIP area, vaguely felt a sense of familiarity when the giant butterfly appeared from the clouds in the void. However, he could not recall the origin of the giant butterfly at the moment. When the giant butterfly began to use its graceful dance to summon countless butterfly-type beasts, he could not help but cry out in shock when he recalled the memory instantly. The supreme beast, the 9 heavens cloud butterfly. Zhou Yu's cry also awakened many of the guests who vaguely felt a sense of familiarity but could not recall it at the moment. After looking at each other, nearly 80% of the guests immediately signaled the chief eunuch to take them out of the mansion temporarily so that they could observe the 9 heavens cloud butterfly at a close distance. Because the prince's mansion was shrouded in a formation, it was forbidden to fly and fly. After obtaining Yusiki's consent, the rest of the guests left the mansion except for a few powerful experts who were at the level of the soon-to-be Emperor Wu and 3 elders who were slightly inferior to the Zhou family. Of course, the long-armed ape, who had just finished admiring the scenery of the mansion but was isolated by the crowd, also stayed in the mansion. The supreme nine heavens cloud butterfly appears. The immeasurable calamity will destroy the mortal world. Looking at the dancing nine heavens cloud butterfly above the palace, the long-armed ape did not lower his voice at all and sighed with emotion. It seems that the time of the great calamity of heaven and earth is getting closer and closer. I wonder who will be the one who will accept the order of this great calamity, and who will be able to survive this calamity in the end. The long-armed ape's sigh shocked Zhou Yu's, and his eyes revealed a look of strong expectation. Above the palace, when the number of butterfly-type beasts around the nine heavens cloud butterfly exceeded 1,000,000, the nine heavens cloud butterfly stopped dancing and slowly landed beside Yu Haoran. Looking at the graceful nine heavens cloud butterfly, Yu Haoran said in an unusually gentle tone, "Little butterfly, sorry to trouble you," flapping its wings slightly in response. The nine heavens cloud butterfly emitted a trace of spiritual sense. After the divine sense fluctuations disappeared, all the butterfly-type exotic beasts with wingspans of over 60 meters and 5 different colors landed in Xianyang City. Then, they paved the way from the joyous moon palace to the prince consort's residence, forming a 5-colored path of butterflies. Then, the 8 7-colored wind whisper butterflies with a wingspan of 20 meters slowly merged together, forming a huge 7-colored butterfly flower bridge. As for the remaining 1,000,000 butterfly-type beasts, the smaller ones flew on both sides of the rainbow butterfly path, while the larger ones circulated their Yao Qi, preparing to perform even more surprising moves. Seeing that everything was ready, Yu Haoran turned his head and reminded the dumbfounded head steward Liu. "Head steward Liu, you can invite Her Highness onto the sedan now." According to normal wedding procedures, the groom should be the one to prepare the drummers and the sedan chair. Yu Haoran had not prepared in advance because he wanted to use the nine heavens cloud butterfly's influence on the butterfly-type beasts to give Qin Lingfei an unforgettable wedding ceremony. Oh, okay. Shocked, sober, and nodded. Faced with Yu Haoran's reminder, head steward Liu walked into the joyous moon palace in a daze. 3 minutes later, Qin Lingfei, wearing a phoenix coronet and a red veil, arrived at the entrance of the palace with the support of 8 palace maids. Xiao Dai. Turning his head, he reminded the nine heavens cloud butterfly. Then, under the influence of the spiritual sense, a blue-spotted deep-sea butterfly slowly landed in front of Qin Lingfei, its wings connecting Qin Lingfei to the sedan chair. Seeing that the 8 palace maids supporting her didn't dare to step on the butterfly wings, Qin Lingfei reminded them softly, "Don't worry, don't you believe in Prince Consort's methods?" Under Qin Lingfei's reminder, the 8 palace maids carefully stepped on the butterfly wings, steadily sending her into the huge sedan chair. Chapter 1269. Xianyang City. Xiao Dai, let's go. Seeing Qin Lingfei enter the bridal sedan made of butterfly-type exotic beasts, Yu Haoran also stepped onto the 5-color butterfly path and instructed the 9 heavens cloud-color butterfly. The 9th heaven cloud butterfly quickly shrunk to the size of a palm and landed on Yu Haoran's shoulder. Afterwards, under the gaze of the eunuchs, palace maids, concubines, and princesses, Yu Haoran stepped onto the rainbow path and left the joyous moon palace. "Mother, when I get married in the future, I also want to have a wedding like this, okay?" A 15-year-old princess looked at Yu Haoran expectantly. Looking at the beautiful bridal sedan made of butterflies, she asked the concubine beside her. Regarding this, the concubine, who knew how powerful Yu Haoran and the 9th heaven cloud butterfly were, could only smile bitterly, not knowing how to reply to her daughter's request. On the roof of a palace 1,000 meters away from the joyous moon palace, Qin Tianze was holding a wine jar in his hand. Looking at Yu Haoran, who had a blissful smile on his face as he stepped onto the rainbow path, his eyes filled with sorrow. "Yina, if Tianze had held a wedding like this for you back then, you wouldn't have betrayed me and wouldn't have chosen to leave me." Raising the wine jar in his hand, Qin Tianze drank all the wine in it in one go. The sorrow in his eyes was instantly replaced by determination. Just as he was about to fly away from the palace, Emperor Qin, who was dressed in casual clothes, appeared on the roof with two larger wine jars in his hand. "Do you want to find her?" The Qin emperor sat cross-legged on the roof and tossed one of the jars of wine to Qin Tianze. Then he opened the seal of the wine jar and asked indifferently, "Father, I can't forget her." Two lines of tears flowed down from the corners of his eyes as Qin Tianze said with incomparable pain. The Qin emperor said to Qin Tianze after he finished drinking 5 caddies of strong wine in one go and shattered the wine jar. "Zer, now that Howren has the ability to see through the heavens and earth, whether you want to find her or rekindle old memories with her, it's best to ask Howren for help." Saying this, Emperor Qin stood up and left the roof, leaving behind a sentence that made Qin Tianze both happy and sad. "If you insist on being with her, then you should give up the throne and become a prince with real power." Ayo! Seeing Yu Howren walk out of the palace gate, the 8 dragons on the ground immediately stood up and roared towards the sky with the coiling purple dragon. Along with the roars, 9 chains condensed from demonic chi were attached to the sedan chair. While the other was attached, the other end was wrapped body's body, the 9 dragons. Stepping onto Kieran's back, Yu Howren didn't need to take the initiative to remind Kieran. After getting up, Kieran also stepped on the colorful butterfly path and walked back to the prince's mansion. At the same time, the giant butterflies flying overhead used their demonic chi to condense countless petals, which floated down one after another. Kieran opened the way, the divine dragons pulled the sedan chair, and the falling petals formed a scene that was enough to shock countless people and make them unforgettable for the rest of their lives. If someone can hold a wedding like this for me, even if I have to die on the spot, I'm willing to do it. Looking at the countless beautiful and petite butterfly-type exotic beasts circling around the bridal sedan, colorful petals falling from their heads, Yu's eyes were filled with boundless yearning as she muttered to herself, "That's right. The girl called Sister Xing didn't interrupt Yu's fantasies this time." This was because she was also looking at the sedan chair, the dragons, Kieran, and the man standing on Kieran's back in a daze. She also started fantasizing in her mind. Although the methods used by the prince consort were very shocking, and I, Serene Qing, am also very impressed, I can't help but start to hate him on behalf of all the men on the continent. On the top floor of a 6-story restaurant, a handsome young man looked at Yu Howren, who was standing on Kieran's back, and said with a bitter expression, "Because from today onwards, we won't be able to raise our heads in front of the women we love because of this wedding." "That's right." Another young man with an outstanding temperament nodded in agreement. Just like how long it took to get here, Yu Howren returned to the mansion floating in the air in less than an hour. Yu Howren jumped down from Kieran's back and walked up to the sedan chair. Without needing to lift the curtains himself, a butterfly-type beast spread its wings and revealed Qin Lingfei in the sedan chair. Holding Qin Lingfei's raised hand, Yu Howren helped her out of the sedan chair. However, he didn't immediately enter the mansion. Instead, he spoke to the 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly on his shoulder. "Little butterfly, thank you for your hard work." The 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly spread a wing and patted Yu Howren's cheek. It then flapped its wings and soared into the air, before returning to its gigantic form. Just as the 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly returned to its gigantic form, the tens of thousands of butterfly-type beasts that formed the rainbow path, as well as the 10 blue deep-sea butterflies that formed the sedan chair, all rose into the air and surrounded the 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly. Waving his right hand at the 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly, Yu Howren bid farewell with some reluctance. "Little butterfly, we'll meet again if fate allows." "We will." The 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly replied to Yu Howren's farewell by using the method of divine sense transmission. Soon after, the 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly disappeared into the void under the escort of millions of butterfly-type beasts. After the 9th heaven cloud sea butterfly disappeared, At least 30 people quietly left the mansion among the guests who had returned to the VIP area and the ordinary area of the mansion. Patriarch, do you think I should also quietly make a move? Looking at the guests who were quietly leaving the mansion with obvious intentions, Zhou Fengshu asked in a low voice. If you want to seek death, I won't stop you, Zhou Yu said indifferently while coldly looking at Zhou Fengshu. Being stared at by Zhou Yu's cold eyes, Zhou Fengshu couldn't help but shudder. He immediately extinguished the thought of capturing the ninth heaven cloud sea butterfly alive. Old ancestor Feng Gui, don't think that the ninth heaven cloud sea butterfly is only a ninth level sage realm expert. Even if I join forces with that long-armed ape, we may not necessarily be able to defeat her. Perhaps Zhou Yu's felt that his tone was too cold, and he was afraid of hurting Zhou Fengshu's self-esteem. So he took a deep breath and took the initiative to explain why he didn't want him to make a move. So powerful. Although they hadn't seen the long-armed ape's strength and methods, these martial venerables and quasi-Emperor Wu ancestors were very clear about Zhou Yu's strength. Even an almighty expert with 3 tribulations at the quasi-Emperor Wu realm couldn't withstand a single move from Zhou Yu's. Otherwise, a mere patriarch wouldn't be able to suppress these martial venerables and quasi-Emperor Wu ancestors. Even the powerful patriarch might not necessarily be a match for the ninth heaven cloud sea butterfly if he joined forces with the long-armed ape, who might not lose to him. How could this not shock Zhou Fengshu? Of course. Otherwise, how could the ninth heaven cloud sea butterfly be known as the supreme among the exotic beasts? Chapter 1270. In the prince's mansion, by reducing the steps to the point that they couldn't be reduced anymore, Yu Haoran finally brought Qin Lingfei to the wedding hall. Under the auspices of the Ministry of Rites, they successfully completed the 3 bows and 9 kowtows and all the procedures of sending them to the bridal chamber. The process of welcoming the guests and receiving the bride seemed simple, but for Yu Haoran, it was more tiring than exterminating the 11 quasi-supreme exotic beasts in the Hengduan Mountains, than refining the supreme Huazuan pill and the rank 3 first rank 7 lives mysterious gate pill. At this moment, he really wanted to throw himself on the soft bed and have a good rest, but he knew that he couldn't. Because the wedding wasn't over yet, the main event had yet to come. After changing into a new set of clothes with Qin Lingfei, the two of them walked back to the wedding hall hand in hand. Lingfei, come with me to pay respects to the parents first, and light an incense. Holding Qin Lingfei's jade hand, Yu Haoran ordered with a slightly lonely mood. Prince Consort, I will be with you in the future. Holding Yu Haoran's left hand tightly, Qin Lingfei comforted him tenderly. Sister, Yu Haoran nodded and called Yu Siki, who was standing in front of the memorial tablets enshrining his parents. Xiao Ran, Ling Fei, light an incense for father and mother. Taking out the 6 incense sticks that had been prepared, Yu Siki handed them to Yu Haoran and Qin Ling Fei with red eyes. Yu Haoran reached out to take the 3 incense sticks and handed them to Qin Ling Fei. Then, he took out the 3 ambergris obtained from the Heart Moon Sect's treasury from the storage ring, lit it, and inserted it into the incense burner. Hey, this is ambergris. In the VIP area, the long-armed ape, who was enjoying the 100 Flowers fragrance wine given by the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, suddenly smelled a strange fragrance and muttered to himself in surprise. Because the long-armed ape didn't lower its voice, the guests in the VIP area all heard it mention the ambergris. They all stopped talking and carefully smelled the faint fragrance in the air. After feeling their emotions quickly calming down and their mental cultivation slowly improving, most of the guests in the VIP area put down the wine glasses in their hands and began to use the light fragrance of the ambergris to improve their mental cultivation. However, there was one person at the scene who immediately sealed off his sense of smell and then secretly used his origin energy to block the penetration of the faint fragrance. Mingling, hurry up and consume the distraction pill to suppress Zhou Xuefei's spiritual backlash. Zhou Yu's hurriedly reminded Zhou Mingling when he sensed her abnormality. Zhou Mingling quickly swallowed the spirit distraction pill. Her pale face gradually regained its rosy color, and her breathing gradually stabilized. Father, Shuefei's mind backlash has been getting more frequent recently. I'm worried, Zhou Mingling said worriedly after looking around. Mingling, if you want to break through Emperor Wu's almighty realm in the shortest amount of time possible and break through to the immortal martial god realm in the future, you must suppress Shuefei's mind backlash with all your might. Otherwise, your efforts over the years will all go to waste. Father, I understand. Zhou Mingling nodded, and a ruthless cold light flashed in her eyes. Xiaoran, what is this incense? Yusiki was surprised that the ambergrise's unique effect was gradually soothing the sadness that emerged when she missed her parents. She immediately asked, Sister, this is the ambergris made from the dragon saliva of a venerable realm giant dragon. It can be used to calm one's mind, eliminate one's inner demons, and improve one's mental cultivation. Yu Haoran, who had also calmed down, explained with a smile. Then he held Qin Lingfei's hand and left the hall, and came to the front yard square that could be seen from the VIP area and the ordinary guests area. Letting go of Qin Lingfei's hand, Yu Haoran took a few steps back, and his hands quickly formed a seal to open the mansion's formation that prohibited flying. Then he looked up at the mansion's void and shouted, Blue Jiao, come out! Roar! Accompanied by a dragon's roar that was infinitely close to that of a pure divine dragon. A blue jiao with a beautiful body, about 70 meters long, sky blue all over, and 2 antlers protruding from its head, flew out of the void clouds. After seeing Yu Haoran standing in the mansion square, the blue jiao quickly rushed down. As soon as it rushed into the mansion, the blue jiao clearly felt the Xian Yin's soul fire in Qin Lingfei's body, and immediately circled around her excitedly. My husband, this is? Qin Lingfei asked in confusion, pointing to the blue jiao that was circling around her excitedly. Lingfei, this is your husband's first wedding gift to you, a divine dragon with 70% divine dragon bloodline as a pet. Yu Haoran explained with a smile. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Qin Lingfei asked in surprise, Really? Because when the blue jiao rushed out of the void clouds, she was attracted by the blue jiao's beautiful shape. And when the blue jiao rushed into the mansion, the restlessness from the Xian Yin soul fire let her know that this blue jiao could help her refine the Xian Yin soul fire as soon as possible, helping her to quickly break through her cultivation. More importantly, it could speed up the removal of the remaining Xian Yin cold air in her body, so that she and Yu Haoran could complete the ceremony of husband and wife as soon as possible. In the face of Qin Lingfei's questioning, before Yu Haoran had time to answer, the blue jiao took the initiative to express its attitude. Lingfei, Yu Haoran is right. Lingfei is willing to sign a pet contract with you and become your loyal companion. My husband, thank you. After receiving the affirmation of the blue jiao's attitude, Qin Lingfei thanked him with joy. You and I are already a family. No need to be so polite. Shaking his head, Yu Haoran reminded her with a smile. Lingfei, there's no time like the present. Why don't you sign a pet contract with the blue jiao now? Nodding, Qin Lingfei directly cut her finger and forced out a drop of blood. Then, she used the contract imprint and quickly completed the signing of the pet contract with the blue jiao. Boom! The moment the pet contract was signed, Qin Lingfei and the blue jiao simultaneously released white flames that emitted a cold yin aura. The more the white flames burned, the lower the temperature of the cold yin aura. Soon, the cultivators in the VIP area and the ordinary guest area who were martial honorables and below had to get up and retreat. Compared to the white flames that rose from Qin Lingfei and the blue jiao, the crowd was more shocked by Yu Haoran, who was standing in the square. Being able to ignore the cold yin aura emitted by the white flames meant that Yu Haoran's physical body had most likely broken through the martial honorable realm. As the white flames burned more and more fiercely, Qin Lingfei and the blue jiao's cultivation advanced at a rocket speed. In just 10 minutes, Qin Lingfei's cultivation quickly broke through from the middle of the 4th grade martial saint to the high of the 7th grade martial saint. And the blue Jiao, who had just advanced to the 1st grade martial saint realm, directly advanced to the high of the 7th grade martial saint realm. As the white flames gradually extinguished, Qin Lingfei and the blue Jiao's cultivation finally reached the peak of the 7th grade martial saint realm. Chapter 1271. Inside the prince's mansion, the advancement of the profound Yin soul fire not only allowed her to break through to the peak of the 7th grade martial saint realm, but also completely removed the remaining profound Yin cold qi in her body. Thinking of what the prince consort had said before, that the moment the profound Yin cold qi was removed, she would become a real woman, Qin Lingfei couldn't help but lower her head in embarrassment. After all, it was indeed a little embarrassing for a girl to desire that kind of thing. Fortunately, the excited roar of the blue Jiao, which had directly advanced to the peak of the 7th grade martial saint realm, calmed her down from her embarrassment. Master, you are really too outstanding. Being able to sign a beast pet contract with you is the most important decision Law Honor has made. It is also the wisest decision Law Honor has made in her life. After roaring, the blue Jiao quickly shrank into a small snake of more than 10 centimeters. Then, it coiled on Qin Lingfei's shoulder and boasted excitedly. Cough! Seeing the blue Jiao shamelessly boasting, Yu Haoran, who was afraid of leading Qin Lingfei astray, couldn't help but cough lightly and remind it to pay attention to its words and actions. Looking at Yu Haoran with a gaze full of fear, the blue Jiao hurriedly rushed into Qin Lingfei's sleeve and then tightly wrapped around her arm, beginning to consolidate the grade it had just advanced. Lingfei, I didn't think that there would be such a shocking change when you signed a beast pet contract with the blue Jiao. After the blue Jiao hid in Qin Lingfei's sleeve, Yu Haoran said with a smile. However, this change is a good thing. It can let the second treasure I gave you display even more powerful effects. Speaking until here, he took out a jade box from his storage ring, wrapped it with yuan qi, and sent it in front of Qin Lingfei, and explained. Lingfei, there is a 3rd grade, 1st grade jade blood profound Yin flower in the jade box. It can continue to help the profound Yin soul fire advance, and it can directly raise your cultivation to the 9th grade martial saint realm. Prince Consort, thank you. Without opening the jade box to check, Qin Lingfei directly put the jade box into her storage ring, and then thanked him happily. After all, even the long-armed ape, the overlord of the southern region's billions of beasts, had personally come to attend the wedding. It was normal that Yu Haoran could obtain the jade blood profound Yin flower in Death Valley. Seeing Qin Lingfei keep the jade box, Yu Haoran took out a pill bottle, wrapped in yuan qi, and sent it in yuan qi and sent it in front of her. Lingfei, inside the pill bottle is a 3rd grade, 1st rank Huazuan pill. Consider it my 3rd gift to you. Cunning Palace's palace. Empress, 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 Empress. When the Qin Emperor saw the 3rd gift that Yu Haoran had given to Lingfei, which was a supreme transformation pill that could assist martial sages and quasi-martial venerables in breaking through to the martial venerable realm, he teased Zishuan with a smile. Although her words were still tough, the smile on her face showed that she was in a good mood. Not only is the prince consort's ability outstanding, he has always been a very filial child. After hearing Emperor Qin's praise of Yu Haoran and seeing the happy smile on the Empress Dowager's face, a concubine who had just ascended to the throne hurriedly flattered her. My beloved concubine is right. When Emperor Qin thought about how he was able to break through the mind tribulation and body tribulation of the quasi-martial venerable realm, and how he was able to quickly gather the southern region's luck, he nodded and praised. At the same time, he looked at the imperial concubine with approval in his eyes. In the prince's mansion, Prince Consort, Lingfei thanks you on behalf of the Empress Dowager. Qin Lingfei put away the pill bottle that contained the rank 3, rank 1 supreme Huashao pill. She immediately arranged the distribution of the pill. Based on the speed at which Emperor Qin conquered the southern region, Emperor Qin would definitely be able to break through to the martial honorable realm before the southern region hidden dragon roll contest began. Then, the rank 3, rank 1 supreme Hua Xiao pill that she had given to him would definitely be given to someone else. Based on Zi Xian's cultivation and status, as well as her special relationship with Emperor Qin, Yu Haoran had long guessed that she was the one who had given the pill to him. However, when he heard Qin Lingfei's arrangement, he still felt uncomfortable. Fortunately, his strong mental cultivation allowed him to keep a smile on his face. Thus, Zi Xian of Earthly Peace Palace did not notice anything unusual. Then, he took out a pill bottle from his storage ring and used his origin energy to wrap it in before sending it to Qin Lingfei. He then introduced it with a smile. Lingfei, the pill stored in the pill bottle is still a supreme Hua Xiao pill, but it has reached the rank 3, rank 9. The jade hand that had just held the pill bottle suddenly tightened. Qin Lingfei looked at Yu Haoran in surprise. Is it possible that Haoran's alchemy cultivation is about to break through to the alchemy emperor realm? When he heard that the fourth treasure that Yu Haoran had given was actually a rank 3, rank 9 supreme Hua Xiao pill, Yuan Zhu, who had just picked up the wine cup, was so excited that he directly crushed the wine cup in his hand, because he suddenly remembered that his sea of consciousness that was about to collapse could recover. It was also because of the rank 3, rank 9, 7 treasures resurrection pill that Yu Haoran had personally refined. Two of the top pills in succession could not only be refined successfully, but also reach the rank 3, rank 9 supreme Hua Xiao. This made Yuan Zhu unable to help but speculate. Because he was so emotional that he lost his voice, all the guests in the VIP area heard his speculation about Yu Haoran's alchemy cultivation just now. Drinking the wine in the cup in one gulp, the long-armed ape slowly closed his eyes and began to check his medicinal material reserves. Because he wanted Yu Haoran to help him refine a pill that could awaken more bloodline inheritance memories, so that it could assist the Xianhuang Qi in the mansion to break through to the alchemy emperor realm as soon as possible. Clenching his hands tightly in his sleeves, Zhou Yu's turned his head to look at Zhou Mingling with a pleading look in his eyes. Nodding, Zhou Mingling responded to Zhou Yu's request with a calm expression like clear water. Elder Su, immediately dispel any dissatisfaction in your heart with Yu Haoran. Son Zhou Yu, who was also holding the wine cup tightly, solemnly instructed Elder Su. Deputy Sect Leader's son, I understand. Thinking that Yu Haoran was about to break through to the alchemy emperor realm, the trace of dissatisfaction in Elder Su's heart toward Yu Haoran had long disappeared without a trace. In the cunning palace, Zi Xian and Emperor Qin looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Your Majesty, what do you plan to do with the third-level 9th grade Supreme Hua pill? Zi Xian took a deep breath and suppressed the shock in her heart. She could not help but ask, think of a way to awaken the great blood warrior prince and let him use the third-level 9th grade Supreme Hua pill to break through to the martial honorable realm in one go. Then, he can help me unify the southern region. Emperor Qin closed his eyes and thought carefully for a while before speaking with a solemn expression. Are you sure? Zi Xian could not help but shiver when she heard that Emperor Qin planned to awaken the great blood warrior prince, who had been unconscious for over 20 years. Her voice carried a trace of fear as she asked. That's right. Nodding, Emperor Qin looked at Yu Haoran, who was in the prince's mansion, with a look of trust in his eyes. Chapter 1272. Inside the prince's mansion, Qin Lingfei, who had finally calmed down, did not know how to express her gratitude as she kept the pill bottle. In the end, she could only say thank you. Yu Haoran smiled and continued to take out the third pill bottle. Using the same method, he wrapped it in his essence energy and sent it to her. Lingfei, the pill in the pill bottle is a third-grade, 9th-level jade heart pill that can point to one's inner self. With this, you could discover the deficiencies and flaws in your overall cultivation. Z. After hearing that Yu Haoran's fifth gift was actually a jade heart pill that had reached the ninth grade of the third step, most of the guests present could not help but gasp, because the jade heart pill that could point to one's inner self was far more difficult to refine than the third grade ninth level supremacy pill and the seven treasure soul returning pill. So originally, everyone had only suspected whether Yu Haoran had the ability to break through to the pill emperor realm. Now, with the birth of the third grade ninth level jade heart pill, everyone was 100% sure that Yu Haoran's cultivation in the pill Dao would definitely be able to break through to the pill emperor realm within a year. Pill emperor. Ever since the medicine master of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who had the greatest hope of breaking through to the pill emperor realm, passed away, there had not been a pill emperor in the profound sky continent for tens of thousands of years. If Yu Haoran could successfully break through to the pill emperor realm, then his status and influence would not lose to a real Emperor Wu. Ignoring the gasps of the crowd, Yu Haoran continued to remind with a smile. Ling Fei, after you break through to the peak of the ninth grade martial saint realm with the help of the Jade Heart Pill, use the Jade Heart Pill to remove all the hidden dangers in your body and lay the most solid foundation for breaking through to the martial honorable realm. Actually, the third grade ninth level Jade Heart Pill could be said to have been refined by him personally, but it could also be said to have not been refined by him, because just after he had dealt with the trouble of Xiao Zhongyuan and the 100 Great Scholars, his first clone had successfully returned to his main body with the lower grade Emperor Pill Furnace. The third tier ninth grade Jade Heart Pill was a medicinal pill that he assisted his first clone in refining. Qin Ling Fei, who was not too clear on the value of the Jade Heart Pill, only happily put away the pill bottle. Then, she continued to look at Yu Haoran with eyes full of anticipation. Because she knew Yu Haoran's character, she knew that he would definitely give her more than 5 gifts. Faced with Qin Ling Fei's expectant gaze, Yu Haoran did not disappoint her. Instead, he took out a low-level Venerable Realm Dharma artifact that Thaling had just refined for her, which was made up of 9 connected star beads. Ling Fei, this is a low-level Venerable Realm magic artifact that I asked an expert who has reached the Refiner Emperor Realm to forge according to your physique. It's called the 9 Stars Pearl. Without the support of any power, the 9-star Pearl magic tool was affected by the aura and automatically floated in front of Qin Ling Fei. As soon as she reached out to grab the low-level Venerable Realm Dharma artifact that floated in front of her, the 9 beads of the 9-star Pearl magic tool immediately dispersed and surrounded Qin Ling Fei. Then, 9 dazzling beams of starlight shot into the sky and formed a weak connection with the 9 special stars in the distant heavenly continent. Gather the power of the Big Dipper, the right minister, and the left minister to form a Venerable Realm Dharma artifact that can attack and defend. Just as the dazzling starlight emitted by the 9-star beads formed a weak connection with the stars in the sky, the weapon refining sect's vice sect master, Lian Tong, stood up and said in shock, "If you can cultivate a technique that uses the power of the stars to temper your physical body, then the continuous accumulation of the power of the stars will give this Dharma artifact unlimited hope of leveling up. It's even possible for it to reach the godly realm in the future." Lian Tong's shock mutterings made everyone's hearts tremble. They looked at Yu Haoran with shock and fear. They were shocked by the power and quality of the 9-star Pearl magic tool, but they were also shocked by the artificer who could refine this Dharma artifact. After all, when Yu Haoran introduced the 9-star Pearl magic tool, he specifically mentioned that the artificer who refined this Dharma artifact was a weapon emperor who had reached the level of a weapon emperor. Prince Consort, do you know where the weapon emperor is right now? Lian Tong's gaze shifted from the 9-star Pearl magic tool to Yu Haoran. His eyes were filled with boundless reverence as he asked excitedly, "Huh?" In response to Lian Tong's question, Yu Haoran chuckled and continued to pay attention to the dazzling 9-star Pearl magic tool. Yu Haoran, let Ling Fei use her own blood essence to refine the 9-star Pearl magic tool into her Destiny Dharma artifact. When the dazzling starlight gradually dimmed, Thowling hurriedly reminded Yuhauren. When he was refining the 9-star pearl magic tool, Thowling had not thought of letting Ling Fei refine it into a Destiny Dharma artifact. However, when the Sword Tao Providence forcefully cut off the mental connection between Qin Ling Fei and the Destiny Dharma artifact, he suddenly had an idea. Vice Sect Master Lian Tong had just introduced the 9-star pearl magic tool in shock. Ling Fei, use your own blood essence as a guide to refine the 9-star pearl magic tool into your Destiny Dharma artifact. In fact, even if Thowling did not take the initiative to remind him, Yuhauren would have let her refine the 9-star pearl magic tool into her Destiny Dharma artifact. This was because the exact same idea had flashed through his mind as Thowling. After hearing Yuhauren's reminder, Qin Ling Fei immediately forced out a mouthful of blood essence and then sprayed it onto the 9-star pearls. The 9-star pearls that had fused with the blood essence quickly retracted their dazzling starlight and then merged into Qin Ling Fei's Dantian. Prince Consort, feeling the power of the 9-star pearl magic tool, Qin Ling Fei, who was in an unusually excited mood, really did not know what to say and could only call out tenderly. Fortunately, Yuhauren was currently discussing with Thowling whether he could give her the astral dough arts and did not notice Qin Ling Fei's abnormality. Otherwise, he would definitely be completely melted by her tender eyes. Originally, he wanted to let Qin Ling Fei use the astral dough arts to enhance her own strength and help the 9-star pearl magic tool to advance to a higher level. Therefore, in the face of Yuhauren's request, Thowling gladly agreed and at the same time used a blank jade slip to record the astral dough arts. Ling Fei, this is a set of astral dough arts that uses the power of the stars to temper the body. While it can better assist you in improving your strength, it can also help the 9-star pearl magic tool to advance to a higher level. When he gave the jade slip that recorded the astral dough arts to Qin Ling Fei, Yuhauren explained the effects of the astral dough arts while using his divine sense to exhort her. Ling Fei, this body refining art is called the astral dough arts. It is a god realm cultivation art that surpasses the heaven rank. Even when facing the Emperor's interrogation, you cannot reveal any secrets of the astral dough arts. Prince Consort, Qin Ling Fei's excited mood made her want to directly throw herself into Yuhauren's arms and then hug and kiss him to express her gratitude. Chapter 1273. Inside the prince's mansion, facing Qin Ling Fei's gentle gaze, Yuhauren immediately felt a surge of anger in his lower abdomen. Long Yang was about to raise his head slightly. Fearing that he would lose his composure in front of everyone, he quickly took a deep breath to suppress and adjust his emotions. He also quickly took out a dark blue one-piece corset dress. Just as Yuhauren took out the dark blue one-piece corset dress, Zhou Yu's and long-armed ape stood up at the same time and shouted in unison. The Middle Ages defensive treasure, the wide-sleeved fairy dress. The Middle Ages defensive treasure, the wide-sleeved fairy dress. Since the goddess of Qing Xian in the Middle Ages was a gentle and low-key expert, she rarely participated in the battles of the cultivation world. As a result, there were very few records of the wide-sleeved fairy dress. At least, most of the experts in the Noble District did not know the origin of the wide-sleeved fairy dress. Therefore, a peerless martial venerable expert who was acquainted with Zhou Yu's could not help but ask, "Clan leader Zhou, can you explain the origin of the wide-sleeved fairy dress in detail?" Looking at the wide-sleeved fairy dress in Yuhauren's hand, Zhou Yu still could not calm down and asked in shock. The wide-sleeved fairy dress was a defensive treasure that the Lord of the Heavenly Palace in the Middle Ages, the Heavenly Emperor, ordered Taoist Yunzhong to personally refine in order to prepare the dowry for his favorite daughter, the goddess of Qing Xian. Taoist Yunzhong was the top expert in refining weapons in the Middle Ages. He was at the peak of the weapon state and was the only genius in refining weapons who could refine weapons that surpassed the god state. The wide-sleeved flowing dress is a defensive magic artifact at the peak of the deity realm that he refined using 81 types of top-rate materials and an entire 10 years of time. It's capable of withstanding the continuous attacks of a deity realm expert for 3 days and 3 nights without suffering any damage. After hearing Zhou Yu's introduction of the wide-sleeve fairy dress, everyone present was shocked and looked at the wide-sleeve fairy dress with a hint of greed in their eyes. Although there was no greed in the eyes of Lien Tong, the vice-sect leader of the weapon-refining sect, there was a crazed desire to study it himself. Yu Haoran turned to look at Zhou Yu's. He did not expect him to know so much about the wide-sleeved fairy dress. Ignoring the greed and madness in the eyes of the crowd, Yu Haoran stroked the wide-sleeved fairy dress in his hand and introduced with a trace of regret. Ling Fei, the origin of this wide-sleeve fairy dress is just like what clan leader Zhou introduced. It was made by Taoist Yun Zhong in the Middle Ages. Its original owner was the heavenly fairy Qing Xian, the daughter of the celestial emperor. Unfortunately, something happened to goddess Qing Xian later on, causing her wide-sleeve fairy dress to be severely damaged. Now, she can only barely maintain the defense of a low-level exalt. However, Qin Lingfei did not hear Yu Haoran's regretful explanation. This was because when he had just taken out the wide-sleeve fairy dress, a trace of bloodline called out to her, causing her essence, energy, and spirit to all fuse into the wide-sleeve fairy dress. In her line of sight, there was only the dark blue corset dress in his hand. Sensing Qin Lingfei's gaze on the wide-sleeve fairy dress, Yu Haoran smiled and used his elemental energy to wrap the wide-sleeve fairy dress in front of her. However, when Qin Lingfei instinctively reached out to touch the wide-sleeved fairy dress, the wide-sleeved fairy dress instantly exploded with a dazzling green light. Accompanied by the dazzling green light, a fairy who looked 90% similar to Qin Lingfei, but whose aura was 100 times or even 1,000 times better, slowly floated out from the wide-sleeved fairy dress. This is the remnant consciousness of goddess Qing Xian. The green light that exploded from the wide-sleeved fairy dress instantly awakened the bloodline inheritance of the long-armed ape, allowing him to immediately recognize the fairy floating in the green light. Reincarnation, or consciousness transformation. Faling, who also did not expect the remnant consciousness of goddess Qing Xian to be in the wide-sleeved fairy dress, couldn't help but frown and mutter to himself. Who are you? Who are you? Although the long-armed ape had already shouted out the fairy floating in the green light's origin, Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei still asked at the same time. However, Yu Haoran was questioning nervously and vigilantly, while Qin Lingfei was questioning intimately and suspiciously. Facing Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei's questions, goddess Qing Xian turned to look at Yu Haoran and warned him with a slightly stern tone. Man, I hope you can treat this woman who loves and dotes on you well. Don't do anything that will make her sad and upset, and even more so, don't let her down. Woman is Yu Haoran's woman. I will naturally dote on her, love her, and dote on her. I don't need you to tell me what to do. Although goddess Qing Xian's warning was well-intentioned, Yu Haoran hated her bossy and superior attitude the most. Ignoring Yu Haoran's stern rebuttal, goddess Qing Xian lowered her head and looked at Qin Lingfei. Her clear and bright eyes were filled with a tinge of pain as she spoke. Since ancient times, excessive love leads to regret. This regret will never end. Girl, I hope you can have self-respect and self-love. Live a strong life because of me. Don't do anything foolish that will hurt yourself for a man. Facing goddess Qing Xian's persuasion and encouragement, Qin Lingfei quickly assured Yu Haoran, Senior, Prince Consort treats Ling Fei very well. Ling Fei believes that Prince Consort will never let me down in this life. Goddess Qing Xian only smiled in response and did not say anything else. Then, she turned her head to look at the guests in the VIP area and the ordinary guest area. A tinge of contempt flashed across her eyes. Regardless of whether it was Zhou Yu's, who had an extraordinary background, or the arrogant long-armed ape, they were not displeased by Goddess Qing Xian's contemptuous gaze at all. However, when Goddess Qing Xian saw Yu Siki, who was standing at the entrance of the hall with a tinge of displeasure on her face, a tinge of shock and fear flashed across her eyes. Fortunately, as Goddess Qing Xian's background was too shocking, no one dared to look at her directly. Therefore, no one saw the shock and fear that flashed across her eyes. After retracting her gaze, Goddess Qing Xian gently waved her sleeves. Then, an even more intense green light burst out from the wide-sleeved fairy dress. The even more intense green light directly enveloped Qin Lingfei, which made Yu Haoran nervous. Yu Haoran, don't worry. Not only does Goddess Qing Xian have no ill intentions, but she is also helping Ling Fei refine the wide-sleeved fairy dress. Seeing that the nervous Yu Haoran wanted to take the risk to use his divine telekinesis to check, Faling in his sea of consciousness quickly stopped him and reminded him. Faling, what is the relationship between Ling Fei and Goddess Qing Xian? Faling's timely reminder prevented Yu Haoran from taking the risk to check with his divine telekinesis. However, Yu Haoran was very confused about the relationship between the two. Chapter 1274. Inside the prince's mansion. Yu Haoran, to be honest, I'm not sure what special connection there is between Ling Fei and the Qing Xian goddess. Faced with Yu Haoran's question, the tower genie still didn't relax and shook its head. Because the Qing Xian goddess was an expert at the peak of the godly state during the Middle Ages. Her fate has long jumped out of the 6 paths of reincarnation and is no longer controlled and influenced by fate. That is to say, she has lost the possibility of reincarnation. Even the knowledgeable Faling did not know about the special relationship between Qin Lingfei and the Qing Xian goddess. Yu Haoran did not want to continue asking. However, he was now a little worried about whether the remnant consciousness of the Qing Xian goddess would hurt Qin Lingfei. After all, as Faling had said, the Qing Xian goddess was an expert at the peak of the godly state who had jumped out of the 6 paths of reincarnation. She must have many heaven-defying means to be resurrected. Even if it was just a remnant consciousness, it would not be difficult for her to be resurrected by seizing Qin Lingfei's sea of consciousness. Yu Haoran, you can rest assured about this. After hearing Yu Haoran's worries, the tower genie smiled and comforted him. Not to mention that the remnant consciousness of the Qing Xian goddess does not have this ability. Even if she had the ability to seize Ling Fei's sea of consciousness, she would have to ask if I, Faling, agreed to it. Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Faling's comforting words. He then signaled him to take out 5 peaches of immortality from the victor as the final gift. As the dazzling green light gradually dimmed, the Qing Xian goddess, who had brought pressure to everyone present, disappeared. However, everyone was still shocked, because Qin Lingfei's bridal attire had been replaced by a wide-sleeved fairy dress. Not only was her appearance bright and moving, but her temperament was also dozens of times better than before. Looking at Qin Lingfei, who was dressed in a wide-sleeved flowing dress and had the temperament and image of a fairy from the 9 heavens, Zhou Mingling, who had always been very calm, suddenly revealed a nervous expression in her eyes. Regardless of whether she was willing or not, in order to help her father complete the wishes of the Zhou family's ancestors, she would find an opportunity to approach and seduce Yu Haoran and eventually become his woman. Furthermore, she was extremely confident that with her heaven-shaking beauty, her martial talent that far surpassed that of a monstrous genius, and her ethereal, intelligent, and noble temperament, Yu Haoran would eventually fall under her pomegranate skirt and become a puppet under her control. This was also the reason why she had always been so confident. However, at this moment, Qin Lingfei, who was dressed in a wide-sleeved flowing dress, was not inferior to her in terms of temperament and martial talent. She was even slightly better than her. This made Zhou Mingling a little worried. She was worried that Qin Lingfei would weaken her charm, and in the end, she would not be able to successfully seduce Yu Haoran. Although her temperament was like a fairy from the nine heavens, her aura was still the Qin Ling Fei that he was familiar with. Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Prince Consort, Qin Ling Fei, who slowly opened her eyes, knew from the shocked gazes of the guests that her appearance and temperament had definitely changed. Quickly taking out a bronze mirror from her storage ring, Qin Ling Fei carefully observed herself. Following that, excitement surged in her heart, and she finally ignored the embarrassment in her heart and directly threw herself into Yu Haoran's arms. Fortunately, she still maintained a trace of consciousness and did not recklessly offer a passionate kiss. They hugged each other for nearly 5 minutes until Yusiki had to use a light cough to remind the two of them to pay attention to their surroundings. Only then did they reluctantly part. After that, Yu Haoran observed Qin Ling Fei again. Then he smiled and took out the 9th gift, which was also the last one as the finale. It was 3 bowl-sized flat peaches that exuded a strong spiritual fruit fragrance and rich and pure spiritual power. This is one of the 3 great spiritual roots in ancient times. It has the effect of becoming an emperor and breaking through immortality. Just as Yu Haoran took out the 3 bowl-sized flat peaches, the long-armed ape, who had a special preference for peaches, not only recognized the origin of the flat peaches immediately, but also almost rushed to Yu Haoran's side and stretched out its hand to snatch the 3 flat peaches. Fortunately, Yu Haoran's kindness and importance to it made the long-armed ape finally suppress its inner desire for the flat peaches and forcibly stop the thought and impulse of snatching them. The 3 great spiritual roots in ancient times were not a secret to many of the guests present. They also knew very well that the flat peaches, one of the 3 great spiritual roots, had a heaven-defying effect on the cultivation and strength of a warrior. Therefore, not to mention the long-armed ape, who had a special preference for peaches, all the guests present also could not resist the impact and temptation of the flat peaches. Imperial Palace, Cunning Palace. The Qin Emperor and Zixian, who had just recovered from the shock of seeing Yu Haoran's wide sleeves and flowing dress, fell into shock and ecstasy again when they saw the 3 immortal peaches that Yu Haoran had taken out. Your Majesty, quickly issue an imperial edict to let Ling Fei offer 2 flat peaches as a show of filial piety to you and me. Zixian followed her ecstasy and immediately instructed Emperor Qin. Although he wanted to follow Zixian's instructions and issue an imperial edict to ask for the flat peaches, Emperor Qin, who knew Yu Haoran's character and temper, finally forcibly suppressed the impulse in his heart and solemnly persuaded Zixian. Empress Dowager, the flat peaches are a gift from the prince consort to the princess. It is the prince consort's affection for the princess. No matter what Ling Fei does with the 3 flat peaches in the end, you and I can neither take the initiative to ask for them, nor can we have any dissatisfaction or complaints after the event. After hearing Emperor Qin's persuasion, Zixian, who gradually calmed down, finally nodded and agreed with Emperor Qin's persuasion. She thought about the origin of the guests who came to attend Yu Haoran's wedding and the value of the 8 gifts that he had just given her. In the prince's mansion, Prince Consort, could this really be one of the 3 spiritual roots of the ancient times, the flat peaches? Qin Ling Fei asked in disbelief as she smelled the rich fragrance and pure spiritual energy emitted by the flat peaches. That's right, it is the flat peaches. While nodding to confirm, Yu Haoran explained further. However, it is not the flat peaches that were borne by the flat peach tree, one of the 3 spiritual roots of the ancient times. Instead, it is a flat peach spirit fruit that was cultivated by a goddess powerhouse whose strength was comparable to that of the ancient divine beast kings. After handing the 3 flat peaches to Qin Ling Fei, Yu Haoran continued. Although the flat peach spirit tree was cultivated using a special method and does not have the heaven-defying effect of breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, it still has the powerful effect of directly increasing one's cultivation by 100 years without any side effects. After hearing Yu Haoran's detailed explanation of the origin of the 3 flat peaches in his hand, The greed and madness in everyone's eyes gradually dissipated. Chapter 1275. Inside the prince's mansion, a flood dragon with 70% of the divine dragon's bloodline. A rank 3 first-grade jade blood dark-een flower that could directly raise the dark-een soul fire. 2 supreme transformation pills that could be used to show filial piety to the elders. A rank 3 ninth-grade jade heart pill that could directly change one's heart. The 9-star pearl that could be used to upgrade one's appearance, temperament, and aptitude. And the peaches of immortality that could directly raise one's cultivation. Zhou Mengling stared at Yu Haoran, whose face was filled with tenderness, as she recalled the 9 gifts he had given to Qin Lingfei. She couldn't help but compare them. If there was an outstanding man who also prepared an unforgettable grand wedding for her and gave her 9 treasures that could change her fate, would that be able to unlock the ice in her heart? The answer was, if this outstanding man referred to Yu Haoran, who had the ability to become a pill emperor, not only would he be able to melt the ice in her heart, he would also make her fall hopelessly in love with him. Qin Lingfei, if you take off that wide-sleeved immortal dress, what qualifications do you have to compare yourself to me? Zhou Mengling, what qualifications do you have to receive Yu Haoran's love? Yu Haoran's face was filled with tenderness as he handed the 3 peaches of immortality to Qin Lingfei. Looking at Qin Lingfei's blissful smile, Zhou Mengling's arrogance was aroused. She couldn't help but want to compete with Qin Lingfei to see who had the qualifications to win Yu Haoran's love. Prince Consort, I want to give 2 peaches of immortality to Father and Empress Dowager. Is that okay? Qin Lingfei asked carefully after happily receiving the 3 peaches of immortality. After all, she knew about the conflict and enmity between Yu Haoran and Zixian. She was afraid that if she decided to distribute the peaches of immortality without permission, she would incur the displeasure of her beloved. Ling Fei, since it's a gift for you, I don't mind how you want to distribute it. Yu Haoran smiled. Actually, when Qin Lingfei decided to give the 3rd level first-rank Huazuan pill to Zixian, Yu Haoran knew that Emperor Qin must have something to do with it. Since he had already given him the supreme Hua pill, he did not lack a peach of immortality. In Cunning Palace, Your Majesty, it seems like you didn't dote on Ling Fei for nothing. She is still filial to you and me. After hearing Qin Lingfei's decision on the distribution of the peaches, Zixian was both elated and gratified. She sighed to Emperor Qin. Yeah, nodding his head, Emperor Qin also nodded his head in gratification. He reminded her with a worried expression. Empress Dowager, although Prince Consort only gave Ling Fei 9 gifts, the value of each gift is probably not inferior to our dowry. I'm worried that Ling Fei will be a little disappointed when she sees the dowry. Emperor Qin's reminder made Zixian realize the problem as well. The joyful smile on her face immediately disappeared. Her eyes were filled with worry as she looked at the prince's mansion. In the prince's mansion, looking at Qin Lingfei, who happily accepted the 3 peaches of immortality, Yu Haoran smiled and reminded her to wait for a while. Then, he walked in front of his sister and took out a peach of immortality that he had prepared in advance and gave it to her. Sister, this is the first gift I've given you. Xiaoran, since it's from you, I'll accept it. Yusiki didn't stand on ceremony with Yu Haoran at all, as she snatched the peach of immortality and sniffed it carefully. Then, she excitedly put the peach of immortality into her storage ring. Sister, after the wedding is over, I still have 2 more gifts for you. After reminding her with a smile, Yu Haoran turned around and walked to the VIP area. He took out the last peach of immortality that he had prepared in advance and gave it to the long-armed ape with a smile. Senior, this peach of immortality is for you to try. The long-armed ape's expression changed slightly as it looked at Yu Haoran in disbelief. This was because it had never imagined that Yu Haoran would actually specially prepare a precious peach of immortality for it. After all, Qin Lingfei was his wife, and Yusiki was his sister from the same mother. Not only was it an outsider, but it was also a strange beast that was viewed as an enemy by humans. Young friend, are you sure? Therefore, the long-armed ape still couldn't believe it as it continued to ask. Yu Haoran directly stuffed the peach of immortality into the long-armed ape's wide palm as he explained to the guests present. Dear seniors, senior brothers and sisters, I'm sure you all know how rare the peach of immortality is. I only managed to obtain 6 peaches of immortality by chance, and I need to keep one for myself to try. Therefore, I can't give it to everyone present. Yu Haoran didn't care about the reactions of the guests present after hearing his explanation. He returned to the square and waited for Ling Fei to start showing off the dowry. Qin Ling Fei nodded at Steward Jiang, who was already prepared, and signaled him to bring up the dowry that her father and the Empress Dowager kept adding. The first to be brought up were the 300 wooden boxes. After the eunuch in charge opened all of them, a strange smile appeared on the faces of the guests present. However, Qin Ling Fei's face instantly darkened, because the 300 wooden boxes were filled with spiritual stones, from the 1st grade of the 7th level to the 9th grade of the 5th level. The total number of spiritual stones was no more than 9 million. If it was a normal princess who got married, 9 million spiritual stones from the 1st grade of the 7th level to the 9th grade of the 5th level would be considered a relatively generous dowry. However, for Qin Ling Fei and Yu Haoran, who had prepared such a grand wedding, it was really too shabby and petty. Although Yu Haoran didn't show any displeasure at the fact that the first dowry was filled with spiritual stones, Qin Ling Fei's face instantly darkened, which made Steward Jiang's heart skip a beat. Quick, bring all the dowry to the square. Then, he turned to the eunuch in charge and ordered, hoping that the huge amount of dowry could satisfy the princess. 100 pairs of exquisitely crafted jewelry, 100 boxes of silks and satins, 100 boxes of ordinary refining materials, 50 bottles of the 1st grade of the 7th level and the 1st grade of the 6th level of the elixir, 10 pairs of furniture carved from purple wood. Looking at the wooden boxes and boxes that were constantly being opened, the strange laughter of the guests present became louder and louder. Qin Ling Fei's face became colder and colder, and Emperor Qin and Zi Xian in the Cunning Palace also became more and more unpleasant. Looking at the dowry in the square, Zhou Mengling's eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule. As one of the 3 great empires in the Tianxian continent, the most favored princess of the Emperor Qin's kingdom was getting married. As a dowry, it was actually not as good as the gifts given by ordinary guests as the dowry. If this spread out, people would definitely laugh their heads off. Empress Dowager, what's going on? Emperor Qin certainly wouldn't personally interfere with such a small matter as choosing the dowry for the princess, so he gave full authority to the Empress Dowager to handle it. Steward Hong, immediately investigate and find out who touched the princess's dowry. Zi Xian, whose face was also gloomy, ordered the eunuch in charge of the Cunning Palace. Chapter 1276. Inside the prince's mansion, looking at Qin Ling Fei's frosty face, Yu Haoran waved his hand at Steward Jiang, indicating for him to quickly remove the slightly shabby dowry. Then, he walked in front of her. Reaching out and pulling her into his arms, Yu Haoran comforted her with a smile. Ling Fei, as a peak grandmaster of alchemy, a peak grandmaster of formations, and a master of spells and poisons, your husband lacks everything except these worldly possessions. Actually, His Majesty has already given me a priceless treasure that countless spirit veins, pills, and artifacts can't compare to. Yu Haoran reached out and lifted Qin Ling Fei's chin. Looking at her slightly red eyes, he said emotionally, "And this priceless treasure is you, Qin Ling Fei, the woman that I, Yu Haoran, love the most in my life, the wife that can accompany me for the rest of my life." Prince Consort. The strong impact of guilt and happiness made Qin Ling Fei finally unable to control her emotions. She directly buried her head in his arms and cried. And Zhou Mengling, who sat back down, looked at Yu Haoran, who was tightly hugging Qin Ling Fei. His emotional words just now echoed in her ears, and a trace of desire and jealousy appeared in her eyes. At this time, She even began to imagine that she could replace Qin Lingfei. She hoped that she could truly feel what it was like to be tightly hugged by Yu Haoran. After letting Qin Lingfei vent for a few minutes, Yu Haoran gently patted her shoulder and teased. Lingfei, we still have to toast to the guests in a while. Be careful not to cry until your face is ruined. After hearing Yu Haoran's teasing, Qin Lingfei suddenly remembered something more important. After leaving a sentence in his ear, she hurriedly rushed to the bridal chamber to freshen up. Prince Consort, the cold Yin energy in my body has been completely eliminated. Tonight, I will completely give myself to you. Qin Lingfei's words directly made Yu Haoran's erection erect. He slightly bent down to avoid the guests noticing the abnormality of his body. He took a few deep breaths to suppress the anger in his lower abdomen. Then, he waved at Steward Jiang, who was guarding the VIP area, and motioned for him to come to his side. Arrange for 2 more obedient eunuchs in palace, maids to accompany this prince consort, and the princess to toast the guests. This old servant will arrange it. Although he didn't know the intentions of the prince consort's orders, Steward Jiang still did his best to arrange it. Looking at the 2 delicate-looking eunuchs and the 2 dignified and beautiful palace maids, Yu Haoran was very satisfied with Director Zhang's arrangement. Then, he took out a 5-jin wine jar of wine and gave it to the 2 eunuchs. In a while, I'll use the wine in this jar to toast the guests. This servant obeys. This servant obeys. Toasting at a wedding was a study. Through the order of the toasts, the number of toasts, and the attitude of the toasts, one could see the closeness between a pair of relatives and the guests present. After Qin Lingfei dressed up and returned to the scene, Yu Haoran led her to start toasting with a smile on his face. Many of the guests present suddenly looked forward to it. He led Qin Lingfei to the long-armed ape, who was sitting alone at a table, and picked up a small wine cup that was specially used for toasting. Yu Haoran smiled and thanked him. Elder Ape, thank you for coming to Haoran's wedding. Haoran is very grateful. Please drink 3 cups of wine from me and Lingfei. Yu Haoran risked defending those few forces to stay behind to attend the wedding. Yu Haoran's actions had already touched the long-armed ape. Now, the first person he was toasting to was him. This made the long-armed ape feel like he was willing to die for his bosom friend. Young friend, I'm just a rough ape. I don't know how to give you blessings. Therefore, I can only give you a promise. I promise that as long as you're in the southern region, no mutated beasts will dare or be able to harm you and your wife. After hearing the long-armed ape's promise, all the guests present were shocked. While they were amazed by the long-armed ape's strength, they finally understood why Yu Haoran was toasting to the long-armed ape first. Thank you, Elder Ape. Seeing the long-armed ape giving such a heavy promise, Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei expressed their gratitude and placed the wine cups in front of it. This is the wine that the Astral Source Emperor personally used during the Middle Ages. After drinking the first cup of wine, the long-armed ape had a reminiscing look in its eyes. After drinking the second cup of wine, the long-armed ape's eyes lit up. After drinking the third cup of wine, the long-armed ape cried out excitedly. After confirming long-armed ape's conjecture, Yu Haoran led Qin Lingfei to the second person to propose a toast. Long-armed ape, on the other hand, sat down cross-legged, and with the help of the 100 Flowers fragrance wine and the Xianhuang Qi in the mansion, he continued to advance his cultivation. Zhou Yuz and the others, who were familiar with and understood the Star Source Emperor of the Middle Ages, were shocked by long-armed ape's shouts and breakthroughs on the spot. It also made most of the guests on the scene interested in and look forward to the wine used for the toast. Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei walked up to Chu Zhongyu, who seemed nervous and restrained. They raised 2 cups of 100 Flowers incense and said with a slightly regretful expression, Eldest senior brother, since Master couldn't attend Haoran's wedding personally, then as the eldest senior brother of the sect, you can drink the 3 cups of wine on behalf of Master. 9th junior brother, on behalf of Master and the other junior brothers, I wish that you and Her Highness will be united forever. The long-armed ape's actions made Chu Zhongyu realize that the wine Yu Haoran was toasting to him was extraordinary. Afraid of embarrassing himself, he drank 3 cups of 100 Flowers fragrance in one go. Immediately after, the enormous energy that erupted from the 100 Flowers fragrance made him sit cross-legged and try his best to refine the energy that erupted from the 100 Flowers fragrance. Yu Haoran patted Chu Zhongyu's shoulder 9 times to help him temporarily seal most of the enormous energy that erupted from the 100 Flowers fragrance. He then walked up to Zhou Yu's. Seeing that he was the 3rd person toasting to him, a satisfied smile appeared on Zhou Yu's face as he stood up to greet. Clan leader Zhou, as a royal family that has been passed down since the Middle Ages, I am truly grateful that you are able to attend my wedding personally. Please drink 2 cups of wine for me. Hearing that there was 1 cup less to be toasted, Zhou Yu took the cup with slight disappointment. He then looked at the wine in the cup and couldn't help but sigh. Delicacies overflow the tabletop. Fine wine fills the golden goblet, and the wine appears. The ancestors have passed away. After sighing, Zhou Yu drank 2 cups of 100 Flowers fragrance in one go and began to use the Xianhuang Qi in the mansion to refine the enormous energy that erupted from the 100 Flowers fragrance. Yu Haoran nodded at Zhou Fengxiu and Zhou Mengling. Just as he was about to move on to the next guest to toast, Zhou Mengling suddenly spoke. Chapter 1277. Inside the prince's mansion, seeing Yu Haoran and Yu Siki stop in their tracks, Zhou Mengling suggested with a smile. Of course, in return for Yu Shixiang's sincerity, Mengling is willing to remove the silk veil on my face and use my true appearance to bless Yu Shixiang and your highness. After hearing Zhou Lingming's suggestion, Yu Haoran turned his head to look at Qin Lingfei. He saw that she was only alert, but did not object or feel any disgust. He nodded at one of the palace maids. Yu Haoran raised his wine cup and placed it in front of Zhou Mengling, treating her as if she were an ordinary guest. Maintaining a slightly distant tone, he spoke. This prince consort is very happy and grateful that Junior Lingming is able to attend the wedding. Please. Although Yu Haoran did not directly reject her suggestion, the act of placing the wine cup in front of her spoke volumes about his attitude. How could Zhou Mengling stop her plan just because of Yu Haoran's rejection? She was going to compete with him with her peerless beauty. Reaching out to slowly remove the silk veil on her face, Zhou Mengling revealed a peerless appearance that shocked the majority of the guests present. Unfortunately, Yu Haoran, whom she had hoped would be attracted to her peerless appearance, had a very calm reaction. It was as if her stunning appearance could not arouse his interest in the slightest. Qin Lingfei, who was similarly shocked, unconsciously glanced at Yu Haoran to see if he had been captivated by Zhou Lingming's peerless appearance. Fortunately, Yu Haoran's calm expression allowed her to secretly sigh in relief. At the same time, she rejoiced that she had found such an outstanding and devoted man. His expression seemed as calm as water, but in reality, his heart was still stirring. This was because the Zhou Mengling who had removed the white veil was exactly the same as the Zhou Xuefei who had filled him with regret in his previous life. Fortunately, he knew that Zhou Mengling was not Zhou Xuefei. Whether it was in the past life or this life, the two of them would not have any interactions, so he could face it calmly. Junior Sister Mengling, please. Yu Haoran raised the wine cup in his hand and reminded her with an unchanged expression and tone. Zhou Mengling took the wine cup in disappointment and reluctance. She raised her head and drank the wine. Originally, she wanted to be like Zhou Ninghe and ask Yu Haoran if she was beautiful or not. However, the 100 Flowers wine instantly exploded with a huge amount of energy. At the same time, her expression changed, and she sat down cross-legged to refine the boiling energy in her body. The sect master and ancestor Yuan of the Sky Martial Arts sect, as well as the other 3 elders who were slightly inferior to the Zhou family, looked at Yu Haoran expectantly, hoping that they could be the 3rd person to be toasted. However, to their great disappointment, Yu Haoran bypassed them and came before a youth who was about the same age as him and only at the peak of the 7th grade martial saint realm. Senior brother, senior sister. Seeing Yu Haoran and Qin Lingfei taking the initiative to toast him, Wu Jingjun hurriedly stood up and shouted respectfully. Jingjun, I have the means to contact the first prince at any time, so I know your performance in the barracks very well. After motioning the palace maid to pour 2 cups of wine, Yu Haoran sent the wine cup to Wu Jingjun and praised him with satisfaction. I'm very satisfied with your performance in the barracks. Thank you for your praise, senior brother. After reaching out to take the wine cup, Wu Jingjun did not drink it immediately. He just wanted to say something. Knowing what Wu Jingjun wanted to say, Yu Haoran reached out to pat him on the shoulder and said with a smile, Jingjun, you don't have to go to the barracks to train in the future. Just stay in the prince's mansion and help me. Understood, senior brother. After drinking 2 cups of wine in a row, Wu Jingjun happily bent his knees and sat down cross-legged, refining the 100 Flowers fragrance wine with all his strength. Seeing that he was able to withstand the impact of the huge energy in his body with his strong physical body, Yu Haoran nodded with satisfaction, then stepped forward to the 5th person to toast. Senior Jinyu, senior brother Lu. After seeing that Yu Haoran's 5th person to toast was Lu Yuan and his disciple who had sworn a blood oath to protect him, the guests present were convinced. Prince Consort, Jinyu, who had hurriedly stood up, hurriedly returned the greeting. Senior Jinyu, senior brother Lu, this prince's mansion will be your new home in the future, Yu Haoran said with a smile, holding a wine cup in each hand. Thank you, junior brother Yu. Nodding and drinking the wine in the cup, Lu Yuan directly stood in place to refine the huge energy of the 100 Flowers fragrance wine, which was enough to prove how strong his perseverance was. Turning around and leading Qin Lingfei to the Sky Martial Arts Sect's ancestor Yuan and Yi Junan, Yu Haoran began the 6th person to toast. The red candle had gone out, the wedding window had been closed, and the bed curtain had been moved. After a short night of torment, the sky had gradually brightened. Looking at Qin Lingfei, who was sleeping soundly, with a ruddy face, Yu Haoran's eyes showed a trace of love. After a night of madness, several active and passive demands, he knew that Qin Lingfei, who had just had sex, must be very tired. After gently tucking her in, Yu Haoran quietly put on his clothes and got out of bed, quietly opened and closed the door, and then stepped to the square in the front yard. Looking at the 100-meter-tall, white tiger statue in the center of the square, Yu Haoran gently leaped onto the forehead of the white tiger statue, and then sat down cross-legged, looking in the direction of the central region, with a hesitant look in his eyes. Ignoring the pain in his body, being crazily demanded, let him know how deep Ling Fei's love for him was and how dependent she was on him. Facing a lover who treated him so affectionately, did he have to repeat the regretful relationship from his previous life? Brother Yu, Elder Ta wants you to unlock the seal on your sea of consciousness. Just as Yu Haoran was hesitating whether he should cut off the relationship from his previous life, the second clone reminded him through telepathy. How could such an important matter be watched by others? Therefore, after entering the bridal chamber last night, he had completely sealed his sea of consciousness, eliminating all chances of Thaling and the 2 clones spying on him. After casually unlocking the seal on his sea of consciousness, Thaling, who had instantly appeared in his sea of consciousness, was about to criticize Yu Haoran's wrong action of measuring the stature of a gentleman with his own yardstick, but was completely stopped by one sentence from him. Thaling, I want to cut off the relationship from my previous life. Is that possible? No. Thaling carefully recalled the grief Yu Haoran had shown when he had obtained the love burial flower among the red blood rocks in the Blue Moon secret realm, and carefully recalled. Yu Haoran, according to my observations and speculations, the relationship from your previous life has too deep of an impact on you. Not only is it difficult to completely cut off, but it is also very easy to form an inner demon. At this point, Thaling turned his head to look at Qin Lingfei, who had also appeared in the square, and knew the reason why Yu Haoran suddenly wanted to cut off the relationship from his previous life. So he advised, "Since you can't cut off the relationship from your previous life, why don't you face it openly and accept it? No matter what the final result is, I believe that Ling Fei will accept and forgive you." Chapter 1278. In the forbidden area of the Imperial Palace, there was a 99-meter-long arch bridge. One end of the arch bridge was shrouded by a thick layer of white mist, giving people an unfathomable sense of mystery. On the other end of the arch bridge, Emperor Qin, Zi Xian, and 100 young people with extraordinary temperaments were staring at the white mist on the other side of the arch bridge. Their eyes were filled with longing and nervousness. Prince Consort, according to what I learned from First Brother, the secret realm on the other side of the arch bridge is called the Hidden Dragon Wonderland. It has existed for a very long time. The reason why the ancestors chose Xianyang City as the capital of the Emperor Qin's kingdom is directly related to the Hidden Dragon Wonderland. Looking at Yu Haoran with eyes filled with tenderness, Qin Lingfei noticed that he was not in a good mood. She knew that he was not interested in the secret realm of the Emperor Qin's kingdom. After all, with his current cultivation and strength, ordinary secret realms would not have much effect on increasing his strength other than wasting time. If it was not for the fact that he needed to take care of her safety and help her increase her cultivation and strength with the help of the secret realm's training, he would probably refuse to participate in this secret realm's training. Therefore, Qin Lingfei began to introduce the secret realm's origin in detail, as well as the various opportunities contained in the secret realm, hoping to arouse Yu Haoran's interest. Prince Consort, actually, every time the Hidden Dragon Wonderland opens, it is directly related to the Hidden Dragon ranking battle. According to the information I learned from the Scripture Pavilion, in the past 10,000 years, the Hidden Dragon ranking battle has been suspended 7 times due to special reasons. And in the 7 times that the Hidden Dragon ranking battle was suspended, the Hidden Dragon Wonderland was also unable to open smoothly. Therefore, this secret realm in front of us is called the Hidden Dragon Wonderland. Oh, after hearing Qin Lingfei's detailed introduction of the secret realm of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, Yu Haoran, who was originally not very interested, immediately asked with interest, "Ling Fei, what kind of opportunities are there in the Hidden Dragon Wonderland?" Seeing that Yu Haoran's interest was finally piqued, Qin Lingfei hurriedly introduced spiritual pulse, spiritual medicine, spiritual fruit, spiritual grass, mutated beasts with the bloodline of divine beasts, etc. Other than that, the treasures that Qin Lingfei just introduced just now, basically all secret realms, so he needed to know some treasures that could help increase his cultivation and strength. Prince Consort, other than the treasures that Ling Fei mentioned just now, there are also law source stones that can help you comprehend and control the power of law, blood source stones that can be used to purify the impurities in your bloodline, and so on. Because the dowry had been swapped, the Qin Emperor and Zi Xian, who were standing at the front of the crowd, had been paying attention to Yu Haoran. Is of Emperor of Emperor's Emperor, of Emperor the Emperor of Imperial of Emperor Divine Emperor, of Emperor A. Father. Seeing that Emperor Qin took the initiative to start a conversation and walked towards them, Yu Haoran hurriedly pulled Qin Lingfei to greet him. "Prince Consort, I apologize to you first." Emperor Qin nodded in response to Yu Haoran's salute and apologized solemnly. "Why do you say that, father?" Yu Haoran frowned slightly and asked in confusion. Since the end of the wedding, he and Qin Lingfei had not left the bedroom at all. They had been trying their best to explore the secrets of the origin of human beings. They had not had any contact with Emperor Qin. "Prince Consort, I announced to the public that the third prince, Qin Tiany's cultivation was abolished, and that he was locked up in the death cell of the imperial clan court." Although Yu Haoran did not know what he had done wrong, Emperor Qin said truthfully in order to eliminate any misunderstandings that might arise between them in the future. "In fact, I spoiled Qin Tiany too much. I did not eliminate his cultivation nor lock him up in the imperial clan court. Instead, I quietly sent him to the heavenly martial sect and let him accept the training of the heavenly martial sex disciples. Father, no matter what, the third prince is also your own flesh and blood. I can understand your approach and promise not to pursue Qin Tiany's previous mistakes. If he heard this news a year ago, perhaps he would be dissatisfied with Emperor Qin's selfish and deceitful approach. But now, he no longer cared about the life and death of a small character who had been left behind by him. I know Prince Consort's mind very well. This is also the reason why I sheltered Qin Tiany. Emperor Qin was deeply gratified that Yu Haoran was willing to let go of the previous grievances and forgive Qin Tiany's previous sins. He was also full of anger towards Qin Tiany's approach. But what I never expected was that Qin Tiany actually took advantage of my spoiling of him. Not only did he quietly sneak back into the palace, but he also dared to replace the dowry that I and the Empress Dowager had prepared for Princess Ling Fei. It turned out to be third brother's doing. The dowry for her face was too shabby. It was the only mistake that destroyed the perfect wedding. It could be said that it was a thorn in Qin Ling Fei's heart that could never be forgotten and eliminated. At this time, when she heard that the dowry that her father and the Empress Dowager had carefully prepared for her was replaced by Qin Tiany, even if it was her brother who had a good relationship with her before, Qin Ling Fei's heart emerged with uncontrollable hatred and murderous intent. Imperial Father, you know that I, Yu Haoran, am a person who doesn't care much about worldly possessions. As for the matter of the third prince swapping the dowry, I will not be angry, nor will I feel angry. So let bygones be bygones. Qin Tiany's behavior could only explain one problem. That was, even if he accepted the cultivation of the heavenly martial sex inheritance disciple, the improvement of his cultivation and strength would be limited. Otherwise, he would not even have the courage to challenge him head-on. He could only use this kind of despicable conspiracy to disgust him. And people like Qin Tiany, who had lost the heart of martial arts, could only carefully live in the dark under his rising reputation. He was a pitiful person who had always lived in fear. Therefore, he did not intend to continue to pursue the matter. At this moment, he would not care even more. Seeing that Yu Haoran still chose to let Qin Tiany go under such circumstances, Emperor Qin was moved and felt even more guilty in his heart. Prince Consort, the Empress Dowager and I have prepared a new dowry for Ling Fei. After the experience of the Hidden Dragon Fairyland is over, I will personally send it to the Prince Consort's residence. In this regard, Yu Haoran shook his head and refused, but did not explain too much, because at this moment, the white clouds in front of the arched bridge suddenly began to boil. The movement of the white clouds on the other side of the arched bridge also attracted Emperor Qin's attention. After nodding to Yu Haoran, he immediately returned to Zishuan's side. Then, the two of them took out an exquisite dragon-shaped and phoenix-shaped sculpture respectively. After mobilizing his spirit power and soul power into the dragon-shaped sculpture, the dragon-shaped sculpture in Emperor Qin's hand immediately left his palm and turned into a lifelike divine dragon. Chapter 1279. The Imperial Palace, the Forbidden Area. The divine dragon transformed from the dragon-shaped statue was 99 meters long, and the divine phoenix transformed from the phoenix-shaped statue was 99 meters tall as well. Not only did the divine dragon and the divine phoenix transform into vivid and lifelike forms, but the dragon's cry and phoenix's cry that they emitted were the purest divine beast's roars. The divine dragon and the divine phoenix playfully played around in the air for a while before they charged into the white clouds with the dragon's cry and phoenix's cry. After the divine dragon and the divine phoenix charged into the white clouds that were already boiling began to churn even more violently. At the same time, the arch bridge in front of the white clouds suddenly broke into 100 pieces. Each piece of the broken bridge was just the right size for a person to stand on. The moment the arch bridge broke, Emperor Qin immediately turned around and instructed the participants in front of him. All disciples who are participating in the trial, listen up. Everyone will choose a piece of the broken bridge as your foothold. The broken bridge will bring you into the hidden dragon wonderland. Let's go. After nodding to Yusiki, Tang Yunjia, and Wu Zhengjun behind him, Yu Haoran held Qin Lingfei's hand and chose two pieces of the connected broken bridge as their foothold. The hidden dragon wonderland will only be open for 9 days. After seeing that the 100 disciples who were participating in the trial had all chosen the broken bridge, Emperor Qin continued to remind them. After 9 days, the broken bridge that you chose to land on will bring you back. Therefore, after entering the hidden dragon wonderland, although it's important to look for opportunities to increase your cultivation and strength, it's even more important to protect the broken bridge that you're standing on. Otherwise, if you lose the broken bridge, you'll lose the hope of leaving the secret realm. After Emperor Qin's reminder, the broken bridge that was floating in midair slowly drifted into the white clouds. When the broken bridge floated into the white clouds, Yu Haoran hurriedly reminded Qin Lingfei. Lingfei, if we get separated after entering the secret realm, you must contact me through the heavenly Luo rosy clouds jade pendant. Prince Consort, I understand. Nodding her head heavily, Qin Lingfei immediately took out the heavenly Luo iridescent clouds jade pendant, using practical actions to show that she would listen to his instructions. As the wreckage of the broken bridge drifted into the white clouds, Yu Haoran suddenly found that his spiritual thoughts could not leave his sea of consciousness. Shocked, he immediately contacted the Thaling in his sea of consciousness. Yu Haoran, my divine will is also unable to leave my sea of consciousness. After hearing Yu Haoran's introduction, Thaling, who was concentrating on studying the 18 floors of the Black Tower, immediately appeared in his sea of consciousness. Subsequently, he tried his best to do so, but his divine was unable to leave the space of his sea of consciousness. They had yet to truly enter the secret realm. Even Emperor Wu's Thaling realm couldn't use his divine thought. This made Yu Haoran realize that he had underestimated the hidden dragon wonderland. At the same time, he began to worry. Thaling, stay in my knowledge, sea for now, and accompany me to explore the so-called hidden dragon wonderland. Okay. He vaguely felt that the white clouds in front of him were somewhat familiar. It was extremely similar to the derivative energy of a legendary, forbidden magic treasure. Therefore, even if Yu Haoran didn't take the initiative to remind him, Thaling would take the initiative to stay in his knowledge sea and see what kind of forbidden magic treasure gave him a familiar feeling. If the area of the forbidden area of the Imperial Palace was calculated, the area covered by the white clouds was limited. With the speed of the broken bridge wreckage, it would take at most 5 minutes to reach the end. However, the broken bridge wreckage under Yu Haoran's feet had been floating for almost 20 minutes, and there was still no sign of it floating to the end. This made him unable to help but frown. Although in the beginning he wasn't very interested in the hidden dragon wonderland and didn't specifically understand the specific situation of the secret realm, based on his experience of exploring countless secret realms and ruins in his previous life, he knew that the situation in front of him was very abnormal. Therefore, he quickly asked the Thaling in his knowledge sea for help. Yu Haoran, we seem to have fallen into an extremely powerful trap. In fact, as early as 10 minutes ago, Thaling had already felt that something was wrong. However, because his divine sense was restricted by the white clouds and couldn't leave his knowledge sea, he could only rely on his eyesight to observe. This caused him to be unable to find the reason why something was wrong in a short period of time. It wasn't until Yu Haoran also felt that something was wrong and began to ask for help that he discovered the real reason why the broken bridge wreckage couldn't leave the white clouds. Could it be that someone wants to harm me? After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran's face instantly became gloomy, and the name of Zixin immediately flashed through his mind. After all, the only person who had the ability and the opportunity to set up a trap and the motive to harm him seemed to be Zixin, who had a conflict with him. No. Shaking his head, Thaling's expression was dignified as he explained. It should be because when I tried to leave my knowledge sea just now, I leaked a trace of the aura of the victor, which contained the law of time, and opened the array hidden in the white clouds, causing the broken bridge wreckage to change its direction and finally fall into the trap. Thalink's explanation eased Yu Howren's gloomy face a lot. Just looking at the white clouds that could restrict divine sense, and the broken bridge wreckage that seemed to float forever, he asked somewhat irritably, "Thaling, can you break the array in front of us?" "I don't know. I can only say that I'll try my best." As a divine sense array, Thaling's cultivation had reached the divine realm. This was the first time he showed such lack of confidence in front of Yu Howren, which made Yu Howren suddenly nervous. Taking a deep breath, he bent his knees and sat cross-legged in the broken bridge wreckage, giving Thaling time to break the array, and at the same time, thinking of a way to leave the white clouds. After floating for less than 5 minutes, Qin Lingfei, who was stepping on the broken bridge wreckage, successfully passed through a layer of milky white energy shield and appeared in an independent space that was full of spirit energy and had beautiful scenery. It was like a fairyland on Earth. Qin Lingfei immediately put the broken bridge wreckage into her storage ring and slowly landed on the ground. She quickly observed her surroundings and immediately discovered that there were people who were stepping on the broken bridge wreckage entering the secret realm. She could not help but sigh in relief. "Sister." Yusiki waved at Yusiki, who had entered the secret realm, and called out happily, "Zhengjun, big brother tongue." Just as Yusiki put away the broken bridge wreckage and quickly landed next to Qin Lingfei, she saw Wu Xingjun and Tung Yunjie again and also waved happily. However, when all the people who stepped on the broken bridge wreckage entered the secret realm except for Yu Howren, the smile on Qin Lingfei's face gradually disappeared. "Sister, where's Prince Consort?" Qin Lingfei turned her head to look at Yusiki and asked anxiously. "Lingfei, don't be anxious. Perhaps it's because Lil Ran is too powerful, so she might have entered the secret realm in advance." Yusiki, who was also anxious, knew very well that she had to remain calm in such a situation. Otherwise, not only would Qin Lingfei completely collapse, but even Wu Xingjun would also fall into madness. After all, she was very clear about the brotherly relationship between Wu Xingjun and Yu Howren. She also knew that he had a bloodthirsty physique that could easily fall into madness. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.